Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout. Tonight we're joined by Jimmy Diresta and Chuck Hellebuyck. We're going to be talking about bringing 3D printing into an already established workshop, doing metalworking, woodworking, and artistic work, all kinds of different stuff. Jimmy is a maker of all sorts, and he's going to tell us about his recent adventure into 3D printing in the last 6 to 9 months. And if you guys have questions in the chat, please tag at Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout or any of the other panelists, and we'll grab your question. We're going to try to hold the chat questions until the end, or towards the end once the panel's done asking questions, but we'll keep track of your questions as we go. If we do miss a question, I apologize. Sometimes the chat gets moving a little bit too quick and we can't keep up with it, but we'll do our best. And let's go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves. We'll start off with Anthony.
Hey guys, my name is Anthony Tackett. I am a woodworker, 3D printing enthusiast, recently into CNC stuff in the Kansas City area. I'm actually in Kentucky right now. I got back from a fishing trip earlier today. I was doing some bass fishing with my dad. But on YouTube, I'm just Anthony Tackett. On Twitter, Tackett Design. You can find me on Facebook under that as well. My content's just centered mostly around DIY, making things out of wood, and hopefully more CNC stuff coming out soon.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Next, we've got Pooch.
What's up, everybody? I'm Alan Puccinelli. Everybody calls me Pooch. I'm also known as Repcord on all the social media things. I host a bi-weekly stream with my buddy Travis, a Pyro Design, called Community Catch-Up, where we cover all things making in the world. And I got a little side hustle called Repcord. I sell some filament, some accessories, and goodies like that. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Pooch. Next up, we've got Richard.
Have to find the mute button. Hello, I'm Richard Murray. The channel is ZDM. You can see all my contact info down here, but most places I'm ZDM, and so fairly straightforward to find. I try to focus on trains by finding I'm doing more and more printing dealing with other things, including having a printer as a tool as tonight's topic. So I haven't posted much lately. I've been losing my voice, but I got material that's been filed and I have to get around to editing it. So looking forward to the show.
Thanks, Richard. Next up, we've got John.
Hi, everyone. This is John at You Do It. I run a YouTube channel, You Do It. I also run Instagram, you.do.it, and Twitter, you_do_it. I focus a lot on DIY and makerspace content. If you need help trying to grow a video or grow your channel, you can reach out to me because I've been attending events like Vid Summit, Video Marketing World. So you'll see me around. Thanks for having me on again, Matt.
Thanks, John. Next up, we've got Wes.
Hey, I'm Wes Swain, also known as Geeksmithing Online. I like to do a little bit of everything from 3D modeling, animation, woodworking, casting, 3D printing, any shiny new tool. I want to mess with it and play with it, see how it works. A lot of my content on Instagram and YouTube focuses on kind of like a geek-inspired art creations using different products. So I like to explore different methods and techniques and sort of see where it goes, and usually have like a video game related build or something along those lines. And happy to be here.
Thanks, Wes.
Yep.
And I'm Matt from How I Do It, and also organizer of the Friday Night Hangouts, along with Chris Pileski, and Martin from 3D Printing Iceland organizes the European F3DPCH streams. You can find me youtube.com/howidoit, patreon.com/howidoit, Twitter, Country Cowboy, and Instagram, Matthew Flinchball. So next up, we've got Chuck.
Hey guys, I'm Chuck Hellebuyck. I run the Filament Friday YouTube channel, and that's about it. Just have a lot of fun making 3D prints and having fun teaching people how to get started.
What a humble guy.
And last but not least, our guest of the evening, Jimmy Diresta.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. I feel honored that I just learned how to do 3D printing, and you guys would have me out here to ask me what I don't know, what I'm still learning. But I have a YouTube channel and I have an Instagram, all under my name, Jimmy Diresta. And I met Chuck several times in the last several years at Maker Faire. And finally, this year, while we were talking, I said, you know what? I think I need to get into 3D printing for real. I've been given machines in the past, 2 different machines that I didn't pay much attention to. I just didn't find the fit into my workflow. And then suddenly it just clicked with me, like, because what was happening with me is people started sending me prototypes of things that I needed to do my part. And what they would send me was a 3D printed version of a knife, because I was designing a box around that knife. And then I realized how 3D printing fit into other people's workflows, where 3D printing was a means to an end and not the end. My original bias was, I don't need a 3D printed part, but as using it as a means to an end, that's when it suddenly dawned on me, I do need 3D printing in my life. And I took advantage of my friendship with Chuck and said, how do I get started? And Chuck hooked me up. So thank you, Chuck.
That was my pleasure. Glad to see a part of the community now. And if you guys don't know, he's got a CR10 Mini. And I sent it to Jimmy. He got it set up in like the natural that he is within but I helped you set up the bed, and then like
an hour later I was printing.
You're like, okay, I got my first print, and it was gorgeous. It was perfect. And then he's designing his own stuff, and I go, you don't need my help anymore.
There's a couple of little connective things I'm still a little weak on, but I took a step away only because I went away for 5 weeks, and it just kind of, everything's on pause, along with everything, not just printing. But now I'm back in the swing.
So Jimmy, how green would you say you are? Like, how many things have you run? When did you really start in earnest?
I guess I started in January, right, Chuck? That's right about when I started, because I remember I might have got the printers sitting around, and then a lot of times I take that break between Christmas and New Year's to just like completely experiment and play, because no one's calling me, nobody needs me, no one's expecting anything from anybody. Everyone's just chill, relax. So that's the time I take to really just loosen up and let me play. And I started playing with 3D printing, and the machine was there, and I just jumped into it. And also a little bit of New Year's resolution inspired, saying, you know what, I'm going to teach myself something new every year. I really want to tackle something new just to get it in the repertoire, or, you know, get it on the resume. And that's really what I did. Just so January I started, and I've been printing I have a couple of samples here in front of me. I started realizing how I could use 3D printing to experiment with things that I could just show to a client. So I could show them a picture of this little 3D printout, helps me design it. It helps me see it through. So, yep.
That's awesome.
So do you, when you're designing and when you 3D print your designs, Jimmy, are you printing the design that you then take through Fusion and use CAM to cut out on like the CNC full scale? Or are you just shrinking it down then to 3D print it?
Yeah, I'm just shrinking it down to 3D print it. You guys might have remembered I did the A-bomb sign. I did the A-bomb sign recently. And he sent me Adam Booth is a machinist on YouTube who has a big channel where he does big machining. And so I owed Adam a sign for about a year now. And I said, send me the files. He sent them to me sort of ragtag. He's not much of a computer guy. He's very, very analog machinist. But a friend of his sent me the folder file, and it was in I forget what file format, but it came through in many little pieces of vectors. It was not a CAD. It was something. It was a file. It was all little dots. Anyway, I brought it into Illustrator, and I kind of had to redraw the whole thing. Then I sent it as an SVG to Fusion, brought it into Fusion, extruded it, and I really wanted to see how I was going to cut it out in CNC. So I 3D printed it just to get really a gauge of what was going to be raised, what was going to be lowered, really just to get an understanding. And then I ended up making the thing 24, 25 inches wide. But just this little thing helped me understand so much of exactly what was going to be where, those little connective tissues behind the letters that keep them all together. And I ended up using that same file I'm going to say CNC, but I didn't CNC it. I'm lying. I was about to say CNC it, but I printed out a thing, and I hand cut the whole thing because I was about to CNC it. And my fans get mad at me when I CNC stuff. They're like, "Oh, anybody could do that." So I was like, you know what? I want to prove to them that I'm not leaning on technology, and I hand cut the whole thing. I forgot about it. I was going to say I CNC'd it because that was in my mind, was to CNC it the whole time, and I just jumped to the bandsaw at the last minute. But I will use the same file to plasma cut this. But in general, I usually go from Illustrator to Fusion, or Illustrator to Shopbot software, or Illustrator to Tormach software. Illustrator is where I conceive, develop, and do my vector lines that I'll later extrude, which will later become printed.
What made Illustrator your tool of choice for doing your design work?
Like, for instance, I'm holding up this bullet sign, and this whole thing was built in Illustrator before I brought it into Fusion, extruded it, and then I 3D printed it. I'm just so used to using Illustrator. I also do a lot of type heavy stuff, and Illustrator is a great tool for bringing in type, and then you could turn type into vectors. You could outline it. That's what the process is called in Illustrator. You outline it, and so you go from a font file to a vector, and then in that vector you could expand them, stretch them, modify the letters, and then those vectors become cut files. A few steps later they become cut files. In my most recent video, I did a build of a knife. I made just a traditional style knife, and I started out in Illustrator because I'm also comfortable grabbing Bezier handles and bending them. You could take a point and expand that point into two Bezier handles, and you could make a nice fair curve. And then the knife that I'm talking about has a nice couple of fair curves in it. And so I build it in Illustrator. Makes it, for me, it's just easier. I guess Illustrator was the first program I ever really learned to use on the computer. Illustrator and Photoshop.
Let's talk about that. Oh, sorry, Pooch. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, is that where when you're coming up with a new concept or stuff, are you actually opening up Illustrator and actually starting in there, or are you hand sketching stuff first on a napkin and then bringing it in front of the computer?
Hand sketching, mostly hand sketching, and then I'll do some. The process in general is I'll hand sketch. I'll do a couple of notes, and my hand sketches are so bad sometimes I don't even remember what I drew. But sometimes I'll hand sketch it a couple times. Then I'll do some Google image search just to see if I'm in the right ballpark, whatever it is. I might be making something. Maybe I'm looking for a certain font if it's a type heavy project. And then I jump into Illustrator, and then I start putting down some lines, and I'll do a few versions of an Illustrator. I always go save as. I'm notorious for save as, so I got 15 versions of the same thing in 15 different files. Lately, I've been getting into. I've been doodling on my MacBook Pro, and so I'm doodling in Procreate, and then in Procreate I just add another layer. And then the other night I had the problem of I added another layer and another layer, and I'm drawing on 3 different layers. I got one drawing that's on 4 different layers. So when I output it, it was just a piece of the drawing. So I'm learning. I'm still learning. I've been using all this stuff my whole life. But to use the MacBook Pro and the Mac Pen has been a lot of fun. So instead of drawing on the napkin per se, I'm starting to do it in that. Because then I can then export a JPEG and bring it into Illustrator and then draw on top of that, which is what I do a lot. A lot of times, too, I'll go and look for a black and white image in a Google image search. I'll bring that into Illustrator.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to help.
Sorry.
Do a live trace?
Yeah, do a live trace, an image trace, and you can expand it. That's another. So I use that tool a lot in Illustrator.
I do that a lot, too.
So Jimmy, this image that I have up right now, do you see it?
Yeah, that's the belt buckle.
So you printed this, and then what'd you do? Did you place that in sand and then cast into that? How'd you transfer this to brass?
Yeah, that's the guys at if you guys know Jesse Samurai Carpenter, he wrote to me. He's doing this new thing called Maker Mob, and I've been involved in the Maker Mob. And it's a pay site. You can go to Maker Mob and you could pay to get videos from me and him and other people expanded into several chapters with a full-on explanation of every step. I do my voiceover videos on my Patreon page, but if you see a video on YouTube, you see the same exact video on Patreon with a voiceover over it. In Jesse's Maker Mob, they'll take, like, for instance, they took my canoe video and they broke it into 15 chapters. And so I voice over every step. It's very, very tedious. If you're following along, it's a lot to look at. So he said, hey, let's make a Maker Mob belt buckle. And right away, I was on the 3D printer tip. I was on my trip with 3D printing in like February. And I was like, oh, you know what? This would be a great opportunity to 3D print something, take that 3D print, sand cast it in bronze. And I had never done sand casting like this. I've done it with a smaller, like a pewter, never with a high temperature melt material like that, which melted about 1800 degrees. And so there was an experiment in a few ways. There was an experiment in me making the 3D print. I had to print it a few times to get the draft on the letters, because every time I pulled it out of the sand, it was pulling the sand apart. So I went back to the 3D print like 3 times. And I finally got the right draft angle on it. I kept having to go back into Fusion and making the draft on it, more severe. And you can't really tell. I should have just made it. I was afraid it was going to look it was going to mute the look a little bit. So I tried it first straight up and down. I figured if it was shallow enough, it would pull out of the sand. But you needed a little bit of a draft on there. And you can see that's the very first one I made. The pour didn't fill in all the way. There was a couple of weird cooling issues. But what's interesting is when I finally got a good cast, you could see, even in that one, even though that was my first bad cast, you could see the 3D printing marks. It's amazing how much the sand picks up.
Yep.
Yeah, the sand picks it up. It's pretty incredible.
Now, there's a lot of people who craft the things for the iron so that they can burn their logo on wood. Is it conceivable that you could use this method instead of CNC and brass to 3D print and then cast brass?
Actually, that's a very good idea. I'm sure it would work. I mean, it's a little bit of a ways around, but if you're doing a workaround based on what you don't have access to, I certainly think it's possible. I mean, if you're able to melt bronze or brass or aluminum and pour it, but you don't have a CNC machine, that's obviously certainly a way to do it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say, if I would take that bronze of the belt buckle image there, and then I would probably sand it on like a disc sander or a belt sander just to get a nice flat surface, and then I'd have my nice clean burn face.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Let's take a step back, Jimmy, and talk about the printer you have now that Chuck got you set up with is not the first 3D printer that you had. Is that correct?
No, that's true. I had a Craft Unique. Does that ring a bell? Is that company still in business?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Craft Unique. They were in Europe. I got an email from somebody. This is when I was still back in New York. Actually, my last 2 printers were when I was in New York, but this was a while ago, maybe 2015. And they sent me a Craft Unique, and I really didn't know what to do with it. I printed out the logo Diresta, which is like a tradition. I do that the first thing I do. Any new technology, I print out my logo. And so I printed out my logo, and then I never printed out anything else. And then my buddy, who's an architect, wanted to borrow it. And I wasn't doing vlogs or anything at the time, so I didn't even, I just printed my logo out alone in my room, and nobody ever saw it. I did it at my apartment. And then my buddy borrowed that Craft Unique printer, which was like, I guess it was like an envelope of about 10 by 10 by 10 in like a metal-y box looking thing. And he took it and he ran the thing ragged. Like I went into his office one day and he had like 20 prints around. I'm like, dude, does that thing still work anymore? You just like wore it the hell out. And he goes, oh, no, I think it works. That's what he said. It was about 6 months after I lent it to him. And I never got it back. I was like, I'll grab it another time. And I never did. And then I got a Delta printer from a company on Long Island. I can't remember the name. You guys, does that ring a bell? Like a small Delta printer?
It was the Delta Go, wasn't it?
Might have been. I showed it in a vlog. At that point, I was vlogging, and I made a perfect cube of spaghetti. So it was really successful print for me.
It says here Craft Unique is done by Craftbot, which I think is bigger in Europe, but yeah, they're still around. I know they were just showing some of those off in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done by Craftbot.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they were the same.
I didn't know they had them back. You said that was what, 2015?
It might have been 2016.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of the Unique before either. I've heard of Craft Bot, but I looked it up.
Yeah, they make is it Craftware or something like that, their own slicer. I had that a while back. What, besides not being familiar with 3D printers, what stopped you with those printers from trying more things? Just no ideas for it, or
pretty much not realizing how I could utilize it. And then, another thing too is when I realized that I could use Fusion to just go right to a print, or I use Fusion, I go right, and then I go into Simplify 3D, and then I go to a print. And so when I realized I could do that, for me, it was an excuse to learn Fusion or get more in depth in Fusion, and start using Fusion to go from here, or go Fusion to go to my Tomac, or use Fusion to go to my 3D printer. And I really just I want to be versatile in a lot of different things, just to open up my creative expression, basically. And knowing I can do all these different things, my creative outlet is bigger, better, more unique, and I have the ability to be more creative. And so that's really it. I mean, it's just my thirst for just creativity at the end of the day. And I guess why it sparked this time around is because, like I said, I started seeing other people using 3D prints where the net result wasn't like a pair of dice or like a little fairy. Like you go to make a fairy and everyone shows you these cool things. And I'm like, that's really cool, but I don't know what I'm going to do if I 3D print a little fairy or a little set of dice.
Right. How many widgets can you possibly have, right?
Yeah, like the widgets, like the sale, like for me, I wasn't getting hooked looking at all. I'm like, oh, that's really amazing. I've seen injection molding spitting out 17 pieces in the time it takes, you to jog the machine to home. So personally, like I've lived a life of injection molding, and I've seen it. I was like, this is a great step towards making a prototype. You're showing right now, my buddy Caleb, he was 3D printing print letters, and he's been experimenting for a while now at his college, 3D printing letters.
Yeah, this was a good video.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing that now, but I mean, this is the first I had seen of it, and you can see the net result of him using letterpress, traditional letterpress.
Yep.
So using like our old technology with new technology.
Which you have an interest in the letter presses, and
I do. Yeah, I love letterpress. I printed a bunch of stuff just yesterday.
And you do a lot of stuff on your channel of bandsawing out the letters, and you've CNC routed, I think, some of them.
Yeah, I've also I've lasered. That's another thing. Like this whole world of computer aided design has been such a revolution for me personally. Just to learn all these new things. Then
have you made any of or used any of your designs yet as you're using a lot of it as a tool for a final product or a prototype, like you showed your bullet logo and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you done anything yet where the 3D print has been the final product, whether it's to assist with a tool or like a jig or part of a jig, anything like that at all yet?
I haven't, and it's funny because I kind of have this like little it's half a joke, but it's kind of fun. I put stuff on eBay, and sometimes it goes for crazy amounts of money. It's just kind of a joke. About once every 2 months, I put something on eBay. So I've been thinking about making a 3D print and putting it on eBay, but I want to print something kind of hokey and silly, something fun. So that's definitely in the books.
You can print some accessories for your resin cast figure. That'd be kind of funny.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
I'd buy it.
Yeah. See, that's like a printing press block kind of.
There you go.
But see, this is why I was when Jimmy talked to me, he said he wanted to, get a 3D printer and get set up. I was kind of excited about it because there's your first print, the cat. Yeah?
That is
the decap cat. But there's so many. I started. A lot of my prints were practical prints. A lot of stuff I did the videos on are stuff that affixed things around the house. So I've used the 3D prints more as end products that I've sold on eBay and everything like that. But when I talk to woodworkers, when I talk to the guys that, like, you know, in Jimmy's world there, where they want to work with their hands, they don't necessarily want to do a computer. And for Jimmy to jump on this, it's like, you know, what a great spokesman to show what you can do, you know, with it.
Yeah, it's been fun. This is Brett's been working on a coin. We ended up outputting it differently. Brett came up with a great solution. He ended up basically doing a mask on a silhouette and then acid etching it, or rather electro etching it, a piece of brass. But we were going to do this and do a two-sided coin. But you'll notice, and this is something, Chuck, I should have bothered you about, but I think I was in the process of getting ready to leave and looking for the other half of this print. But if you notice, we couldn't get the resolution from Illustrator. We made a SVG file. We exported it into Fusion. We extruded it, and then my resolution was just so small.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I was able to print stuff smaller than this, letter form smaller than this, and then for some reason I wasn't able to print this one.
Yeah,
it was kind of,
and that was sliced in Simplify 3D, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what I was doing. I'm not saying it's impossible. I was missing something somewhere, that the font wasn't really coming through.
Yeah, that's because I set them up with Simplify 3D, and we started with Tom Jackson, Filament Friendly's file or profiles that I then modified a bit, and then that's what Jimmy started with. But yeah, that's one of the things, Jimmy, is when we get into little things like that, the lettering, Simplify 3D has special settings. I could probably help you with that. But Cura is a different slicer that I've been using a lot in the videos. It actually does a better job with lettering.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I have Cura as well.
And then yeah, exactly. We got you set up with that. And then, yes, my push stick. And then we can get you a smaller nozzle too. If you're trying to do that lettering, if you go to a 0.2 nozzle versus the 0.4 that's on there, then you can get the detail.
This is me. I did a video. I just talked about this in my lecture when I was at Wes. Where the hell did I go this weekend? I can't remember.
Yes.
What was it called?
Spring Make.
Spring Make. Yeah, I was gonna say. I keep wanting to say Make Essential, but that's next week. So while I was there, I discussed the idea of me jumping into Fusion and trying to solve some problems that I had. And for me to put my name in like the shape of a Hershey bar, this is to me is a Hershey bar with a very slight arc, and to put my name in it, that was a big learning curve for me in Fusion. And then when I finally built it, I had the 3D printer set up, and I was like, "Oh, let me 3D print it." So I printed it small just because I was anxious to see it. So that's why it's only printed small. But ultimately, this would be like a real Hershey bar. I ended up doing that video where I CNC'd out a piece of corian and then vacuum formed it and made chocolate bars from that. But my original intention was to make them like this with this curved face. So I was mimicking a Hershey bar.
You know, we could package those with the chocolate dress that I made.
Yes,
there, you know?
Exactly. So this was a fun one. Again, me going into 3D printing really opened up my world with Fusion. I definitely learned a lot with Fusion, and I developed my confidence with Fusion. And I'm still learning. I mean, there's still so much to learn.
Back and forth between Fusion, using it for 3D printing versus using it for the CNCs. Well, they're all CNCs, but using it for the plasma cutter and the CNC router and stuff.
Using it for the Tormach is very complicated for me because there's so many things to a recipe of doing the speeds and feeds, and for me, I screw it up all the time. I mean, I crash and break things all the time. I got to the point where I got scared of it and I stepped away from it because I was having a hard time making a successful cut. And I learned the last thing I did looking at my razor blade there, my big razor blade, I did the bevels on the razor blade and I got a lot out of that little learning experience. And John Saunders helped me from NYCNC or Saunders Machine Works. And so John helped me a great deal with that. That was an easy sand cast, by the way, that we're looking at, is because one side is totally flat and the other side. And then I had a fan send me like 20 pounds of bullet shells. So
yeah, I saw the shells. I'm like, wow, that's quite a bit of shells.
And then Devil's Forge sent me that forge from Eastern Europe. It's unbelievable to me that we don't have an American company that can make a forge like that. They all come from Eastern Europe.
So is that forge? Is that one that's powered by like what? Is it all electric at that point?
Oh no. that forge is just propane,
Oh,
and
yeah,
the way
okay.
that the jets are designed, that the propane sets a fire, which sucks air in. So it's I forget, it's called the Venturi effect, I think.
Okay,
Where
it just keeps it going. Yeah.
just keeps it going. You could adjust the amount of air mixture by simply adjusting the valves on the back.
So this is the second cast because I saw the first one.
Yeah, this is a
one
better
looks
one.
a lot better after
Yeah.
the first one. Yeah.
And you can see like the wood grain on the back of that, which is crazy because I pushed the wood grain in to make the flat back of the cast.
Yeah. Yeah. This is cool stuff.
It's funny. Whenever I see my videos and I slow it down, it's because I'm proud of something. When I'm not proud of it, that shit is sped up. It's funny. I was like, oh, look at me. I'm showing off. And now these are all computer parts that we threw in there. They ended up being, those computer parts, I think, were actually ended up being magnesium, because after I poured aluminum in, and after I made that pour, there was stuff in the crucible that wouldn't go out. It just kept burning and burning and burning. And I said to Brett, I go, did we just make thermite? I don't know why. And then I poured it into the snow, and I was like, if this stuff burns through the cement, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, right.
And I poured it into the snow, and a few minutes later, it was still like glowing red. Like 2 minutes later, a glowing white, I should say. And I said, I don't know what the hell. And so I just said, you know what? There's nothing around it that's going to catch fire. We'll leave it alone. And then eventually it cooled off. But it turns out I think I just melted a bunch of magnesium.
Speaking of practical prints, Jimmy, I wanted to share this with you. So this is this is inspired by your famous push stick, right? And I was doing some cutting on my table saw, and I happened to share it, and I got everybody just yelling at me that I was doing it all wrong. I was using like what was it, using like a trowel or something, a push stick. So yeah, I was, and so Chuck sent me his Diresta style push stick, and that was a good practical print. That was there's one. Wes has got one right there.
Oh yeah, those are CNC'd out of PVC foam board.
Right. So this one was just a 3D printed variant of it, but I love that. It's a good practical print.
Well, that was one of the first prints I did, because I'd watched Jimmy for years, and then that was kind of the video at the beginning of the video. I'm watching Jimmy, and I'm like, oh, I got this idea, and then I went and made that push stick with your logo, the Diresta logo, but then my logo was on it, so I shared. But the printer I had at that time was the Da Vinci, so I could only print like on an 8x8 bed. So realistically, it's a shitty push stick because it's too small to really push. Right. So one of the things when I got a bigger printer, the CR10 or CR10 Mini, I redid it. I did another video on that and made a full size one and made some for my father-in-law. But that's when I first met Jimmy. He was, I said, "This is who I am," and then I mentioned that push stick. He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And that's kind of what started the whole conversation.
You got me. You sent me one. You sent me one, right? I got a little one. It looked like it might have been printed in blue and spray painted white. Is it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, no, it was a 2-color print.
Oh, okay. Because I have it. It's in a drawer at my life is just like if you took everything I owned and threw it through a jet engine and spit out the other side into all the rooms I live in. That's like basically what my life is. And you gave me that. I think you must have mailed it to me or something. Or you gave it to me at Maker Faire? I forget how I got it.
Remember. I know I gave you a push stick, but I can't remember.
It's in my drawer to one of my CNC machines. I have like a utility drawer under my CNC machine, and every time I open it, it's right there. I'm looking down when I'm like fishing for the right size bit or the wrenches to open up the shop butt.
So yeah, that was 2015.
Yeah.
So that was
old school.
Pretty old. Yeah, that was old school.
Wow. Oh my God. I can't believe so much time is elapsing.
Let's jump over to that. So Jimmy and Chuck, you guys, when did you get together and start talking about Jimmy getting a 3D printer and how he could use it? How'd that
September, right? September at Maker Faire.
Yeah, the last New York Maker Faire. September. I just came up to him and I said, hey Jimmy, how's it going? He goes, hey, I want to talk to you.
Yes, I was thinking of you.
and that just started right there. And it's like,
yeah.
And then we had a few, we talked on the phone, and just
You were going to come out and get me set up, but then your schedule got conflicted, and you couldn't make it.
It was all set up, and then it all got screwed up. So, but the biggest thing, we went back and forth like I would with, like someone says, what printer should I buy, right? We hear that all the time. And Jimmy was kind of like the same thing. What printer should I get? And we went through what size you need, what are you going to be printing, what materials, and basically described. We were looking at either an Artemis, which I talked to CNC about getting you a big Delta, the big Delta Artemis, which like what I have back over here, that thing over there. And but that wasn't working out because they were really busy. And then I said, well, you know what? I got a CR10 Mini. I'll just send this thing to you. And
Right on,
so that's how it kind of happened. I just boxed it up. I think it was one I was GearBest or somebody sent me. So I just sent that to you, and then that's really how it started.
Which, by the way, Naomi Wu just sent me one. I don't know if she works for them or if she represents them as well. Does she? Do you happen to know?
Yeah, she's their representative. She's actually in China, and she's their official representative.
Yeah, she sent me one while I was in California. So I just worked in California for the last 4 weeks. I got home 2 weeks ago, and so since I've been home, I've been like sifting through packages and just getting back into regular life. But she sent me the one where like the modular is underneath the heating bed.
Now
I'm not sure.
The X, the CR10X, or so the
Pro, too.
Maybe
the Pro, the 4S Pro.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't open the package yet. It's sitting right here next to me.
What does the box say? Does it say anything in the box?
Hold on, let me look.
Now I'm curious what she's sending out.
Live unboxing.
There you go.
We can do that.
You know what's funny? Most of us
CR10S Pro.
CR10X Pro.
10S. 10S
S Pro. It's an S Pro.
S Pro.
Is that
That's a real good machine. It's got auto level on it. The only thing, change the build material to build tack, and then you're good. I got one in here. I got one sitting over here on the floor. But
when you say build tech, well, I guess you're gonna have to walk me through that.
Yeah.
when I open it up.
Yeah, there's a material that goes right on the bed. Like you're printing right on glass right now.
Yeah.
And or you can put the stuff that Pooch is showing right there.
It's this stuff right here. This is build tack. There's a whole bunch of different kind. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, but anyway, it has a better property. There's also Wham Bam was decent. I've had good success with that. Gecko Tech.
But it comes with the CR10S Pro comes with just like a stick-on sheet, but it's got a special surface that the material sticks to, the plastic sticks to. But the ones that come on those printers is kind of cheap and lame, I've found. And so the auto level tries the auto level, but it doesn't stick. So you're getting everything set, and then the middle of the print, it pops off. So Build Tech is actually just the brand name of much better stuff. You put that on it, and suddenly everything works. So
okay, good.
When you get to that point, let me know. We'll get you. I'll have Build Tech send you some out.
Okay.
Yeah, Kayla's awesome.
Yeah, Kayla will do it.
You know,
yeah,
Jimmy,
I've been so. Oh, go ahead. You go. You go ahead, man.
I say you're stepping into 3D printing faster than most of us do. Usually, you hear people get a printer, and a year later they buy another one, and then another. You've gone 6 months or 7 months?
Well, it's funny. Naomi and I chat through Twitter a little bit here and there, and then while I was away, she got my email somehow, and she wrote me a note. She's like, "Hey, would you be interested in a 3D printer?" And I said, "Sure." I was like, I picture myself like Bob Clagger, but like going in the background all the time, making like a suit of armor or something. So I said, "Yeah, sure. I could make two things at once. That would be cool." And I realized it was the same one that I had, the same brand. So I thought that would be cool,
One of the cool things about the build surfaces, Jimmy, is that like they make with a spring steel sheet that's just held on with a magnet.
Oh yeah.
So you can just really easily take the print off and just go like that, and it pops off. You don't have to deal with getting the little scraper under it and potentially.
Because right now, what I've done is I've Chuck, in your Friday filament kit, I use the glue stick a lot. And then when the glue stick gets too much, I just use a razor blade, clean it off, do some more glue stick. But I guess I'm going to have to do a little bit more advanced technology now.
That's
It's just easier.
Sometimes old school is better, though. I mean, Matt's a big fan of the glue stick, too. I still use the glue stick on glass, too.
Yeah,
there it is.
The other
So
thing,
that's
Jim,
the CR10S. That's the one.
there you go.
Yep.
And this
Yeah.
is the build tech on it. This is, instead of glass, it's just got this material on it,
Yeah.
which
Right on.
it just peels up. But
Very cool.
you'll be able to use all the same files as your CR10 Mini.
Okay.
It's just a little bigger. Yours is 220 by 300 by 300. This one's 300 by 300 by 400 millimeters. So
very cool. Yep. And then I got Maker Central coming up, so I got so many things to do between now and Wednesday. I leave, and then after Maker Central, then I go to San Francisco Maker Fair, and then I really won't be back in like full on action until like May 20th, and that's when I'm going to jump back in everything again.
Oh, good. You'll be at Bay Area Maker Fair.
Yeah, I'm going to be at I'll be at San Mateo.
Me too.
Yeah. Yep. I'll be there
This,
also.
by the way, is the first thing I built in Fusion that I exported to the printer. This little thing. This is what started it. This is the first thing when I was doing like a test. I'm like, okay, let me build something hokey, and it doesn't matter what it is. I just wanted to see if the system worked. So this is just a little box I extruded a square. I extruded a line on it, pushed it back in, punched a few holes through it in Fusion. Then I sent it to the printer. And that was the first thing. And then I threw the file away because I didn't need it. This is just nonsense.
Just randomness.
Yeah. You asked what inspired it. Nothing. Just total randomness. Because I was like, oh, if I draw a circle on that side, I could punch it through and it's going to turn red. Oh, that's cool. Let me try a oblong shape and a punch it through a slotting shop. So you'll notice here, like that's slotted, punched all the way through, and that's punched all the way through the whole cube. So it's just me experimenting. And then I said, let me print it. And that was fun. It was to me, like this was like, I was like a smiling 5-year-old kid going, I can't believe I just drew a couple of lines and now there's a 3D object in front of me, because 20 years ago, I would have to break out 1/4-inch thick styrene plastic, cut it on the bandsaw, glue it together with methylene chloride, wait a half hour for the glue to dry so that I could sand it, and then drill a hole in it with a Dremel tool, and then break out the files and drill a perfect. But now I'm drawing all that on the computer, printing it, and then within a half hour, which would have seemed like a long time ago back in the day, I'd be like, oh, you got to 3D print it, you got to but me finding the plastic, finding the glue, Anyway, I come from a toy background where I spent many hours taking styrene plastic, vacuum forming it over a shape that I might have taken 10 hours to make. Then I vacuum form over it, and then I have a housing for, a toy drill or whatever it is I was working on. And now we could draw it and then print it. It's just an amazing time to be alive. That's what I say all the time.
What's something you would say to somebody who does metalworking or woodworking and is looking at 3D printers, but they're not quite over the fence yet? What would you tell anybody looking at it from that perspective, that they're thinking about it?
I would say pretend you're a kid again and jump into it with abandonment. Just don't even worry about it. Just pretend you're a 10-year-old kid and you're learning how to ride a bicycle. That's it. I mean, you all remember that. I remember the very first time, like my dad let go of the seat and I was like, I can't believe I'm in control of this thing. I just can't believe I'm not falling over. You guys remember that moment when you were able to ride a bicycle for the very first time? To me, it stuck with me. I remember because my cousin knew how to ride a bike before me, and it drove me nuts because I always wanted to be better at him than everything, because he was better at me than everything. And it was just like one more thing that he was better at than me. It was just riding a bike. He's like doing wheelies, and I still don't even know how to ride a bike. But I remember my dad letting go of the seat, and I was like, he's like, you got it. He screamed to me, you got it, you got it. It's like a scene in the movie with like the courtship of Eddie's father. Only us old guys know what that is. And that was before the Hulk. And anyway, so only Chuck knows what I'm talking about. I think he's the only one in my age range. But the point I'm making is tell anybody that's listening that has never done a 3D print, like the idea of like, just pretend you don't know anything and pretend you don't need this for anything, which I was biased. I was biased for the last several years. And then I was like, you know what? Let me just get into this because I see so many other people doing it. There's got to be a creative outlet for me in here somewhere. And, just jumping in and just finding it. was great. And then I've inspired my buddy Derek. I don't know if Derek's watching. I haven't seen him on the live chat, but oh wow, I see a couple people I recognize there. And but Derek has been 3D printing as well. Chuck, Derek's been bugging you. He's my bro, Derek from Malden.
Yeah, I've been helping him with stuff. He's been printing quite a bit, actually, I think.
Yeah, so Derek has just gotten into it. So it's funny. He's also a little kid at heart, like me. So it's you got to get into it just for fun. I mean, you make you make this thing, and then you're like, oh wow, that worked. And then comes the fear factor sets in again. You're like, okay, I printed that, but I didn't design that. Now I got to design something, and that's where the fear factor comes and goes. So,
you see this drawing here, this print I did. This is from Pooch. He has a line of filament, and one of his filaments is purple haze.
That's pretty.
This is a vase, man. It's friggin' incredible. So if you get a chance to get this purple haze from Pooch, man,
that's
you just
pretty.
print something in phasement. I'm sorry I cut you off, Chuck.
No,
okay.
It's good. Oh, Derek's in a manhole working. Derek just chimed in. He says, I'm in a manhole working. I'm listening. Love you, Derek.
Thanks for joining, Derek.
Derek works for Verizon. He does these crazy splices.
That's how he can be in a manhole and still have internet.
That's funny. That's right. That's really funny.
But that print you designed, that little box where the hole and then you had the oval slots in it. When you showed me that the first time, that's when I was like kind of blown away, because so many people I see when they do their first print, like they're going to cut slots. It's going to be, a rectangle. It's going to have corners on it.
Right.
And then when they print it, of course, it sags. Where if you have rounded corners, now it can print and it comes out smooth just like it did. So when you did that for your first print, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a natural. He's just, he's Jimmy. He's captioning 3D printing. Holy crap, And so even though you probably didn't realize it, that was like the perfect way to design that box.
Look at Derek. Remember I just said Derek does splices? Can you guys see that? That's the splice Derek's working on right now. This is why there's static on your phone line, because Derek is just tap dancing on you.
That's awesome, Derek.
Isn't that crazy?
Jesus. I wouldn't even want to touch that.
No,
oh my God.
Got a hold of some Cat 5 and made a nest out of it.
Yeah, put it on fire.
Yeah, right?
Jimmy,
I don't. What?
I was going to say, or ask you, what's something that you've found with 3D printing, or ideas maybe it's something you haven't done yet, that 3D printing is going to make easier for you with your projects? Let
me see. I guess just really seeing it through. It's like I did, for instance, this little candy bar. What I really want to do with this is cut this out of aluminum on the Tomahawk. But for me to print it first, to take a look at it, because I want to make an aluminum vacuum form mold. But for me to take this and look at it has helped me tremendously. Oh, it's made. What was the question? What makes life easier? I forget what the question.
What have you either used 3D printing for, or what can you see using 3D printing for that before would have taken you way longer, would have cost you more money?
Perfect example. So you guys remember, some of you guys know that I invented toys in my former life before YouTube. I invented a product called Gurgling Guts, which is like a squishy eyeball inside of a clear silicone bag. So when you squeeze it, it makes a spitty, slurpy sound, right? So I invented that in 94, 95. We made a lot of money with that. We sold millions of units in the 90s, and then the product died out. And the guys that developed the product with me, I invented it, but they developed and marketed it. Those guys wanted to relaunch it, so they did a Kickstarter to relaunch the product called Gurgling Guts. And because they wanted to kind of ride my coattails of my YouTube fame, which I was more than happy to do, I said, so I promoted it a little bit on my YouTube and my Instagram. And they made a thing where it said, if you order this certain package, you get a Jimmy Diresta Gurgling Guts, signature ball. And I started to laser cut. They're like, what would that be? We didn't even know what it would be. They just put it in the promissory package for Kickstarter. And now there's like a certain number of Diresta branded balls we have to make. And so I was trying to sculpt a ball. I bought a hand ball, and I was trying to sculpt my logo and a curve on it. I laser cut out a piece of cardboard with the Diresta logo, and I'm trying to retrofit the cardboard to a curved surface, a concave surface, and it was just coming out like junk. And then that was like August, September, and then once January came around, and it was like you have to deliver me a ball, Jimmy. You got to give us the sculpt so that we can make the rubber ball. And that's when I went into Fusion, and I made the 3D ball, this is the tiniest print of it just to get the feel of it. But and then I realized I only needed to print half of it because it's the same size repeated. So I printed 2 of them and I just glued them together. And then just the other day, they sent me the big version of it, they sent me an image of the version of it, which is actually now a rubber ball with the skin on it with like a fluorescent liquid in it. So when you squeeze it, the logo appears and disappears because it's pushing against the inside of the skin. So
where did you get those?
You should make it a press.
Right now they're only the reward if you bought a certain package of their Kickstarter campaign. But I told them, I said, I want to buy a bunch of those, so we might be able to sell them. They laughed. They said, okay, cool. We'll figure that out when the time is right. But they're still working on samples. But this 3D print, I was trying to sculpt by hand, and I had such a difficult time sculpting it. Doing like a sculpt that has to be precise for me has never been my forte. I've always struggled at it. When I have to sculpt like a guy chopping a tree down in free form, it doesn't matter what he looks like. I'm good at that. I'm good at making up images. I'm not good at copying images that need to be perfect. So that's where 3D printing comes into play. I could pull a file, extrude it, make it into something, and then 3D print it. Whereas if I had to sculpt it freehand, it would be impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very, very, very difficult for me.
So from everything that we've been talking about, it sounds like for an up-and-coming, or not an up-and-coming shop, an established shop that's just getting into 3D printing, 3D printing truly is for you it's a step to prototype before you invest time and material into the final product. Is really like the biggest advantage that you've seen with it, the productivity side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for the Gurgling Guts ball package that I got sent the other day. Oh, I mean the image rather.
Yeah, if you manage to get some, hit me up. I want to buy one from you.
Well, let's see. I'll show you guys the picture of it right now. They sent me a small resolution picture of it. But here you can see. Those are the Gurgling Guts Diresta version. And they're probably about 2.5 inches in diameter.
That's cool.
They said, which color? I said go for the yellow and green. What do you guys think?
I like the red.
You would.
If we ended up making a bunch of them, maybe I'll get them in both colors.
I love the green.
So Jimmy, I want to ask: have you had any epic failures yet on the 3D printer?
I have had a couple of prints let go.
Yeah.
Here for some reason, I have this.
What?
I got my little box of parts. I save everything I print. I almost never throw anything away.
Well, that's how you learned about the glue stick, right? Your first one broke off.
Yeah. You see here? You know what happened? You know what I'm learning too? I'm learning that the filament is very fragile, and the filament breaks inside of the feed tube. And is that a net result of cold and heat? Because my house gets cold sometimes.
It's more humidity than anything.
Yeah, moisture.
Really?
With PLA, you have it can go too dry and it can be too wet. Old filament, like all my filaments stored in my basement in Pennsylvania. So it's humid in the summertime, dry in the winter. In the spring and the fall, everything's perfect. But when I go and get a spool in the summertime, when it's too humid, the filament's brittle. And usually what I'll do is, like, when I load up my printer, I'll take the first few inches and just snip it off.
Right.
It's usually that first couple of inches that gives you a potential problem.
There's an interesting phenomenon too, that when you leave it in the printer, like there's something right at where it goes into the PTFE tube, and I don't know the science behind it. Maybe somebody else does, but you'll get it breaking off like right where it's going in or coming out of the PTFE.
Yeah, I have a bad batch of PLA. It was the source plastic that was bad, but it's still usable. But if it's left in the printer for more than 10 minutes with no action, it'll snap up.
10 minutes, that's terrible.
Yeah. You know, it'll no problem. As long as it's feeding, it's fine. It's when you stop with no motion, and then it splits.
Yeah, it really depends on the filament and what additives are in it. Like, Jimmy, I sent you a Filament Friday filament, which is with my brand, and that one has less impurities in it, less additives, but it comes with a bag, a sealed bag, like a Ziploc. There was some
desiccant.
Desiccant inside. Thanks. Yep. And you really should store it in that with that bag so it stays dry.
I wasn't supposed to eat that.
He's the guy that eats the desiccant out of the turkey first.
That's so funny.
But it is the pressure, the tubing when you put it into the PTFE and any bends, it puts a tremendous pressure on it. PLA wants to crack because it's more brittle. So that's why it does it in the printer more than it does sitting outside the printer.
Jimmy, do you have it where it's cracking off, like it breaks off the spool and you come back to a print, the printer's moving, but the filament's out of the printer altogether?
Yeah, well, that's what it like kind of it prints and then it's not printing, and I'm looking and I'm like, oh wow, it's broken right at the feed. You know, it's like it might have cracked right at the feed, and then nothing's pushing through.
Something to look at too with the CR10
rollers
and the way your spool, where the position of your spool to the printer, sometimes if you're too far forward or have it going on a weird angle into the extruder, it can. You can cause it to break there too. So that's something else you might want to look at. Usually if it breaks inside the PTFE tube, you're okay because it's already pushed past. It'll keep pushing. But yeah, if it's breaking outside, that's the other thing you might want to look at too, just the angle and stuff that you're going into the printer to begin with. And so you're printing with PLA?
Chuck, am I printing with PLA?
Yes, he's printing with PLA.
Yes.
Okay.
You gotta walk before you run.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used the what came with the printer, which was the Creality PLA. And he's got a spool of the Filament Friday filament. I don't know, did you have any other filament or just what I sent you?
No, just what you sent me.
Okay, then that's all he's got.
Yeah.
So the one breaking is probably the Filament Friday filament because it sat out for too long. If you just unwind, cut off like 2 feet of it, it's probably fine. It's
okay, when I get back to
yeah, it's just those last little bit gets exposed and it just gets brittle. We'll have to get you some rep cord, right? Rep cord, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, we get you set up good. You know, going with some PET G and all kinds of other materials too, huh?
There you go.
Cool.
We got to get you printing wood too. That's what I want to see.
Wood fill.
Yeah, I want to experiment with that. I've seen a little bit of that.
Wood fill is amazing. Yeah, we used it with the Jen Schachter for Wheat Rosies.
Rich, you were showing that earlier on, right? With the horse heads, that's wood print.
Yeah, that's what I have. If I can find the right. This one here. This is wood fill. This one's a what did I say? Bronze fill on it. But I love printing with the wood, and that's why I'm looking forward to the multi-material setup when I finally get it running, to have different types sliding in and get more of a grain effect with it. But it sands well, stains well. I haven't kept the ones that I've actually stained. They're out the door as soon as I'm done. But
you got to get the right stuff, though. Some of that stuff is really finicky depending on the amount of pulp that's actually in the filament and the condition of it and stuff. That's definitely a little more advanced. What do you think, Richard? Have you had trouble with printing wood fill?
My first wood fill I got, I ended up throwing out. It was just useless. I can't remember what it was, but I just put it out of my mind. I've been using this Form Futura, which is out of Europe, I believe, and it's a fantastic material, and I've just been loving it. They have a number of different types of wood fill with it. Protopasta, they've had a few that I've had as well. So, of course, with Protopasta, it all depends what they have this week. What they're working on.
Their metal fills are incredible, though.
Yeah, here, Jimmy, this one here is Richard's talking about Protopasta. This is their copper fill, and you can see the shine on that thing. I
Polishes.
Yeah, I polished that down to 2000 grit.
That's a 3D print. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's heavy. It's got weight to it. That's actually a functional beer tap that I did for one of the guys at work when he retired.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, this is Pillar Fab. This fill here, and it's got the heft to it. It just feels wonderful to hold. But it's a nice material to work with. I'm going to print one of these in copper this weekend.
Yeah, the really cool thing with the metal fills too is when you hold it in your hand. Let me get rid of my screen. When you hold the metal fill like that tap handle, you can feel the coolness of the copper.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really neat.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
carbon fibers, nylons, all kinds of different stuff you can print with.
Yep.
Filaments are in themselves are a whole world of experimentation you can have, and there's a lot of new materials coming out as some big players are entering the field and adding their chemical know-how.
Coffee.
Protopasta did a coffee fill.
Yeah.
They 3D print candy yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chocolate printers.
Pancakes.
And syrup.
Matt has the pancake printer.
Pancake pot.
Printer. Yep.
Wow.
You could actually print your Hershey bars in chocolate if you wanted.
Yeah.
Hey,
they should do that.
Maybe Wes, did you just say coffee a minute ago? Who said that?
Yeah, I did.
Have you guys seen? I was at the Rochester Maker Faire about 3 years ago, and there was a guy there who made a dot matrix printer with coffee. Did you guys see that? Did anybody see that?
No.
Hey, the printer was coffee?
No, but yeah, it was incredible. Like the way coffee. Think of coffee like watercolors, and if anybody ever prints it, has ever drawn with watercolors, you leave like a little bit of pigment in like a floating bubble, and then it dries, and you have a little bit of that like kind of wishy-washy. So this person figured out, it might have been a school team, I forget. They had the X and Y, the bar that moved in Y. It was just one bar that moved in Y with like, I don't know, maybe 300 little dots that expelled coffee. And then it would just go, and by the time it was done, it would basically make like a moire pattern or a dot matrix of a photographic image in coffee of somebody.
That's cool.
You had to let it stay. If you picked it up, all the coffee would run, the drips would run away. You had to wait till the coffee soaked into the watercolor paper for a couple of seconds, probably a few minutes, and then pick it up. And the images were beautiful.
God, people are so creative, man.
Yeah, and like each one of those jets look like a little pipette. The pipettes that get really tiny, and just a little drop of coffee would come out of each one. It would depend upon what the image called for. It was such a beautiful image, a final result, and it was to me it was like fine art. Like it was a great way of like mixing computer technology with fine art, because if you saw that image and it smelled like coffee, like in a gallery, you'd be like, how the hell did they get here? This is incredible.
That's cool.
Because they started with photographs, so they would take a photograph and translate it. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, the coffee filament that Wes was talking about, that's Protopasta again. They do a lot of interesting ones, the metal fills, the
algae one.
Protopasta do the algae one too?
I don't think they do algae. I don't
think so.
Yeah, that's just algae or something like that.
I have some of it here, trying to see who put it out.
That sounds like it would stink to extrude that.
Yeah.
No
The bacon too, yeah.
The bacon, yeah.
I got to 3D print a little finger, little hand.
There you go.
But there's already prints out there. You can just download it.
Yeah, I need to play with the little hands.
Well, there's other thing like this this flexible stuff.
Oh yeah.
This is handy too. You can just, this is 3D printed. I print little feet.
No way.
So this is all rubber. So you can, this is foot for the printer.
It's
Polyurethane. That's urethane based.
Well, this
actually.
is TPU.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a TPU. Yep. And
Jim, my cell phone
gaskets.
case, or the bumper for my phone, that's 3D printed.
Wow. I want to get one of those.
It's a whole new world, Jimmy.
I want that stuff.
Here's the algae-based one. I've got a lot of stringing with it when I print, so I haven't done too much with it. So I have to try it. Supposedly it's biodegradable. I've heard that it's not all that degradable.
Depends on how much time you got.
Yeah.
And then, Jimmy, when you get more advanced with it, you can do stuff like this. Just stick into everything.
What is that?
There's a multi-material.
Yep. There's multi-material units that you can put 4 or 5 filaments into one printer, and it prints out multicolor stuff. That's all printed as one piece.
Now, was that the palette or was that the actual MMU?
This was the palette.
Yeah, so you got to explain the palette now.
Yeah, so I'd grab mine. Well, the one that I have, it's not mine.
And you'd like a rep box to really make your job easier.
Yeah, that's where Pooch's rep box that I showed you when Pooch first jumped on, which I think he had something behind him. So the palette is a little box about, I don't know, say about a foot by a foot, maybe 3 inches thick, that you feed 4 different filaments into it, or it can be 4 of the same color. If you're printing like that CR10 S Pro that Reality sent you.
Yep.
You can print something you could print a solid block and have 4 of the same color filaments going into the palette so that you never run out of filament during your print. Or you do like the multicolor stuff or multi-material where you can print rigid material, rigid PLA, along with the flexible TPU. And now you have a part that is hard in some spots and flexible in other parts of it.
That's cool. That's really wild.
That gets pretty advanced to do that stuff, and sometimes can be frustrating as all hell.
Matt, you don't need a pallet, man. You just need a bigger spool.
There you go. Yeah, that's the 20 pound spools that Pooch was holding up there.
20. Yep. 10 kilos. 22.
22.
No.
But
Jim,
So this was actually printed, Jimmy. This was actually printed on a CR10 Mini, just like what you have, where I did multicolors. Now this, I didn't do the multicolor machine. I just stopped in different colors.
Oh, so as you printed the brown and then you printed the. Oh, I see. You just printed.
Yeah, so that's a cheap and easy way to do it. And then the lampshade is actually 3D printed as well. So there's a lot of stupid little things you can do with it.
Yep. Yeah, there's another way to do it. This is every color's individual prints, and then everything fits like a puzzle. But it's actually, if I push on the back, all the pieces will fly all over my desk.
Oh, that's cool.
But the one thing I hope you look at, Jimmy, is the 3D printer is really like an assistant. I mean, the idea is that you can send something to it, and while it's printing, while it's working on whatever you want, you're off doing something else.
Totally.
And now you got a second printer. You know, I got a whole farm of them. I can run something, multiple pieces, and then work on other things. And then when they're all done, put the thing together. And it doesn't take as long because, you know, I got all these assistants. And that's the way, when you start thinking of it that way, that's when the 3D printer really becomes a tool.
Yeah, totally. And that's what Bob, whenever we're on this podcast, his printers are all running in the background.
Yeah.
He's always up to making stuff.
Well, that's the question I wanted to toss out there was, how do you see the 3D printing as being a tool in your workshop as opposed to being something just for doing the 3D print, but integrating to the rest of your workflow? We've seen you with your castings there, but how do you see it in other areas?
Well, I could probably print, again, my buddy Caleb was really exploring that first, but the idea of making a print block. When Caleb came over, I wasn't printing at all. I wasn't 3D printing, I should say. So now that I am, I can incorporate me making a 3D print block. That's one way of me using it, something I've been thinking about. And then also, again, just making like vacuum form forms. So I 3D print an object. And if that doesn't, you can't always obviously vacuum form over something that's made in plastic, regardless of whatever form, because it can't absorb the heat without becoming deformed. So I would make, for instance, I can do a 3D print and then make a silicone mold of that and then make it in plaster. And then the plaster is my vac form, but I can get an intricate shape by developing an infusion and then outputting it in the 3D print. So these are all the different disciplines I've done in my life, and being able to incorporate 3D printing into all of them is just going to make my life easier. I just have to remember to do it more because I'm so used to, I'm 52 years old. So at my age, I'm always so like set on, oh, that's the way I know how to do it. Oh, wait, let me make a creative video and go in this direction, 3D print it, and then export it this way. So, I can kind of meander my way to a finished result instead of doing it the old way, which would be just to hand sculpt it. I'd literally struggle through hand sculpting it, where now I could make it, 3D print it, then vacuum form it, whatever, the net result might be.
Jimmy, you can vac form with 3D printed stuff. There are high temp plastics and stuff as well, but depending on the temperatures you're dealing with, I think Bob's done a couple vac forms on his channel that he's shown off.
David Randolph's doing acrylic vacuum forming at Printed Solid, which is a 3D printing supplier in Newark, Delaware, actually.
Oh, cool. I know in the past, like I've gotten toys out of I bought toys and scrapped them together and Frankenstein them together and then vacuum formed it and then had a pain in the ass time pulling the vacuum form off of it.
It's the release, that you got to watch.
Of course, it might be, sometimes it sticks to the glue joint, whatever, or the paint, maybe the paint heats up. So whatever. This is my experience from the 90s. I'm here, it's just my negative experience from the 90s.
One of the
20 years ago.
Dave Randolph Printed Solid with doing vacuum forming there. One of the things he found is with a 3D print, a PLA 3D print, so the plastic that you're using, you can, if you do 3 shells, so like in Simplify 3D or Chuck, what does Cura call it? Is it shells for the outer perimeters?
Walls. I think it's walls.
Walls. Okay. So in Cura,
I should know that.
I know, right?
On Simplify 3D, it is you have top, bottom, and perimeter. I think it is. Loading Simplify 3D up here real quick to check. I use this every day and don't remember the names of stuff. So you have top, bottom, outline / perimeter shells. That setting, if you do 3 perimeters, 3 tops, 3 bottoms, that's enough. I think Dave said do an acrylic vacuum forming. He can do 20 vacuum form pools off of 1 print with those settings.
Oh, you're saying that's how thick the wall is by what you were just describing? Instead of having a solid block, you can
passes around. Yep.
It is walls and Cura wall lines.
Yeah, it's under the shell, and then it's number of walls.
Right.
So
there you go. So yeah, just with that simple, which 3 perimeters isn't really anything too crazy. It's still pretty quick to print, and you can. So when you decide to venture into doing vacuum forming off the 3D prints, just something to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, have you seen any of the vac forms Dave's done yet? Because he was just telling me, he just got that thing. And I've always heard that acrylic is less ideal to vac form with. Everybody uses styrene.
Styrene because it's easy. Styrene or PET sheets as well.
When you vacuum form acrylic, it gets super brittle. Unless you're doing like a low relay. You vacuum form like a deep acrylic, and you twist it or something trying to pop it, it cracks.
Yeah,
and it doesn't heat as uniformly or something too. You get like weird variance when you're hit, so you gotta have a nice even temperature. But I know Dave got it because he's messing with it for his enclosures. Wants to do some vac form CNC work for a lot of his new, which does open up a lot of possibilities. But
yeah, I did see some pools that he got off of it where he's just kind of messing around with it, learning how to use it, so to speak, and he's doing pretty good with the acrylics. Now, I haven't seen him try to do an enclosure or anything like that yet.
How thick are you talking?
I think he's just using 16th inch.
Yeah, okay.
And nothing too thick.
And I'm guessing he's not doing some severe contours. He's just doing kind of some tapered lid kind of things, or what?
The one he did, it was something along the lines of like a Halloween decoration. I actually thought he was going to join tonight, but I guess wasn't able to.
I meant to ask him about it on Wednesday, and I forgot.
I'll get him to post some pictures. I'll send him a message.
Yeah.
Get him to post a picture and tag Jimmy in it so Jimmy can see it, and Pooch so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you make jigs, Jimmy? How often would you make a jig for a project, and when you do that, are you doing that out of wood or?
Most of the time, I make jigs out of hot glue and wood, and then once I'm done, I throw them away. That's pretty much the main thing I'll do. Like for instance, today I made. I could show you guys. I took a picture to Instagram it, and I did not Instagram it, just not yet. I made a table base, which is going to be my next video. I don't know if you guys could see. This is a steel table base. It kind of looks like an oil rig.
Yeah.
And I kind of freehanded the legs, but then to make the legs, it's 3 legs, and to make the legs come off at the same angle, I cut a piece of wood and hot glued it to a piece of paneling, and then I scotch taped the legs to those pieces of wood, and then I welded them together with connecting rods. So the jig was to make sure that all 3 legs had the same 10-degree angle. I don't even know what the angle was. I just said, oh, that looks good. And I drew a line parallel to the table. And then I went to the saw and I just released the click from 90 and moved it till it was kind of matching the pen line I drew. And I can't even tell you how many degrees it was. It's a funny thing. I always just work by feel and look. And I recently made a chair for this old house, and I made this steel Adirondack chair, and everybody's asking me details on how I made it, and I just made it as I was going along, and so I took a photograph and I penned in my MacBook Pro. I drew on all the picture and said, and then the one thing I left out that everybody noticed is like, what degree is the angle back of the chair? I go, I don't know. It just felt good.
This many.
I literally sat up like I sat against it, and I was like, Brett was holding. I was like, that feels good. All right, hold that angle. And when I got off it, we just welded it in, because I did a prototype off camera. So anyway, the point I'm making is I use a lot of hot glue scraps, a lot of wood and hot glue scraps, basically. So as far as 3D printing, unless I'm doing like a real finite jig, like maybe something for jewelry or something where I really need to do something repetitive over and over.
Right.
Because
that's why I asked, because I'll run into woodworkers. My father-in-law does a lot of it. He'll make jigs, and it's always like I could just make it quicker than I could 3D print it. Is always the argument. But then I say, well, what if you want more than one? You're gonna go make another one. You're gonna go make 2 or 3. Are they all gonna be the same?
Right.
And that's where 3D printing comes in. So I was like, I made these corner brackets where you can clamp at different angles for 90 degrees. So I gave a set to my father-in-law. I mean, he's got enough clamps and stuff, but he started using them. He's like, oh my God, you got any more of those? So I got a whole bunch of them printed, that I use from time to time. And I go, see, a 3D printer actually works, doesn't it?
yeah, that's cool. I know Rockler makes a couple of things like that in a bigger scale, and they give them to me. The Rockler's give me bins and bins of stuff, and some of it I can't find it like to fit into my workflow.
Yeah, and that's those Rockler ones I had. What made me do these is I can clamp right here.
Yeah, I like that.
With one clamp, I can hold it versus Rockler's had the 2 clamps or whatever.
Yeah,
so I can really click one clamp, boom, put it in place. That's what made me make it.
You know what I saw too? I was inspired by, and you just reminded me. I've seen these like brackets where you can just simply cut up sheets of plywood into various forms, and then corner brackets hold them together, so you can kind of do like college room shelving.
Right.
So I've been wanting to. I wanted 3D print a little widget where you could make like a house of cards with like playing cards or baseball cards or something, and just have these like 3D things. I mean, that probably exists in one way or another, but I was going to try and bring something new and creative to that concept, like make these little corner doohickeys and building something with them.
There's ones like that use drinking straws, like the plastic bendy straws.
Mm-hmm.
There's little 3D printed models on Thingiverse.
The little pieces to connect everything?
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody do it with like something like a deck of cards or something like that. So that would be cool. to see you produce.
Yeah.
That would be really neat.
Yeah, that's a great exercise for an architect to figure out what those joints would be. And you need like a flat side joint, a corner joint, or like a wall joint, whatever.
Yeah. Now, what I've seen, I don't have a copy of it here, and I haven't found it on the Facebook page, but for model railroading, making jigs for trestles. And trestle is something you make, as long as you want. You need a lot of copies of it. You print the jig, and then you're gluing your wood together on top of the jig. So it works out very well with that. Since I'm talking about, here's the 3D Printing for Model Trains group that I put together a couple of years ago. We're just over 900 members. But this fellow here made his window frames now. 3D printed those, and they're going on to his wood model.
That's great.
So that's one place where the 3D printing is a tool for his 3D, or for his model trains.
That reminds me, years and years ago, I had to make. I made a scale model of the Lower East Side, like a fascia of a block, and it had like 10 different buildings, all like kind of turn of the century style buildings with the fascia and the top and the what do they call it? Where the building ends and that whole crowning top of the building. And also the beautiful windows, every window with its own detail. And I handmade everything in wood. This was like 95, 96. Nowadays, I would have just gone right into Fusion, made those window frames, and just printed 5 or 10 of them. If I needed more, I'd probably do it then make a silicone mold and cast them from that point on. But, it's a different world. I spent probably a week's worth of time making all the windows by hand, where I could have made them in 2 days. All the window frames, and the window frames are, about 3 by 2 by 3 inches approximately. That's how the scale of the buildings were.
It helps a lot is with old houses. If you're once again modeling, it doesn't matter the scale, but if you're doing anything turn of the century, there's so much gingerbread, fancy lathe work, what have you.
Yeah.
And, to recreate that major pain, but with 3D printing, not a challenge.
That's right.
I just want to say real quick to anybody in the chat, if you have questions for Jimmy, try to get those questions in. We are about a half an hour away from the 2-hour mark where we'll do outros. And if the panel wants to continue, if Jimmy wants to stick around, we'll keep the stream going. Jimmy, I didn't tell you before the stream, at the 2-hour mark, we always try to stay on topic for the first 2 hours. After that, sometimes the streams will continue on if everybody wants to stick around. If you want to go, that's fine.
Well, my girlfriend might have broke up with me while I was doing this. I'm not sure.
There you go. There's a question for you. Has Taylor had anything that she wanted you to 3D print yet for her workshop?
She goes in spurts of creativity. She saw me 3D printing in, I was printing a lot in January and February, and she's like, "Oh wow, I want to do that." So she started designing joints in Fusion, like joints for lamp parts, and we just haven't gotten a chance to print them. But she definitely has gotten inspired, definitely. But I thought, because you texted me earlier yesterday, you said we'll do a test run at 8, and then I didn't realize we would go. I thought we were going from 8 to 10, and then Taylor came in here at like 9:45. She's like, "Are you almost done?" I was like, "No, we're about to start." And she goes, "I'm leaving," and she left. She went back over to the workshop to weld. So if she hasn't broken up with me, we're probably going to go out for a late night dinner.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to. That was something I thought about on my way home tonight, was whether Taylor's kind of taken into the 3D printing and started thinking about ideas. So, she does leather work, and what else does she do?
Taylor welds and designs her own furniture. She just designed and built a bed, and she's working on a new bench design. She does sophisticated, fancy stuff. And like I say, I'm like, she's like Saks Fifth Avenue, and I'm like Costco. That's what we're.
You're covering all the bases, man. You're covering all the bases.
Yeah. So she always wants to do videos of her stuff, but it usually takes too long, and she's more interested in just like developing a cool joint, and she's always so wrapped up, and she's just starting to learn fusion a little bit, and she wants to do lamps. So I think the 3D printing can come in handy if she starts designing lamps. I think it's going to be cool.
You know, Jimmy, that was one of my questions for you. So do you ever get tired of, like, don't you ever want to just make something and not have to worry about filming it and all that stuff? Like, do you get to do that?
I do. You know, it's funny that this what did I just, you know what I did this afternoon? And it was, I just made, I didn't actually film it. So Tormach, I have a Tormach 4440, I forget what it is, 4400, whatever it's called. And the base started collapsing because it's all sheet metal bolted together. And the machine weighs hundreds of pounds, and the machine made the top of the deck wilt a little bit. So I got the thing with the enclosure and the base, the top of the base just isn't strong enough. And so I took the base over to my shop, and I shared the idea with Jocko, because Jocko's got one. And I said, hey, if you're having problems with your Tormach, this is something you could take it apart and do this. So I took the Tormach whole base apart, and I rebuilt the whole inside frame with steel. So now it looks exactly like it did, but there's absolutely nothing bending in it anymore, and nothing will. You could park a truck on it now. So,
nice.
So I did that all afternoon welding, and I even did the same thing to the bottom. So when that cabinet, if you picked it up, the whole thing would rack and twist because it was all bolted together.
Right.
Now it's got a steel internal frame, but that was fun. So I do make stuff, and then even that wireframe set of legs I showed you, I jump through time. So I'll weld a little bit, and then I tell Brad, who's my camera assistant, I'll say, just go do something else. I'll come back. I always say we jump through time, which means we don't need to film for the next hour because it's so many repetitive things, and that's very freeing to just, and then I'm like, all right, we're at a point now. Let's get back on the camera, and so it is nice to build without. But every time I'm in the middle of, say, printing or doing something cool, I'm like, this is so cool. I got to share this, and I'll put it on my phone, or that's why a lot of times people see me wearing this GoPro on my neck, and I'm not wearing it on my neck to film anything. I'm wearing it on my neck so I have it if I want to film something.
Right.
Like people think I wear it on my neck and it's on. It's never on my neck. It's always there just so I can grab it and then place it like next to the printing press. I'll pull it out of this little thing. I'll pull it out of here. Then it's like available for me. So that's why I wear it on my neck most of the time, just so I don't forget to film something cool.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and a lot of times I just I whip open the iPhone because that's like the fastest path to a camera. I just flip open the iPhone and try and figure out how to prop the iPhone into a position that it could film. And a lot of times I do this. So this is my iPhone, and it has this leather strap on the back, and I turn the camera on, facing forward, and I hold it like this.
Yeah. Little teeth now.
Yeah. So anything, it's like I said, so I try to free myself up and not film stuff, but then I'm like, this is just too cool. And since I started doing vlogs a few years ago, I'm like way in between vlogs at the moment, but I started doing vlogs a few years ago. Anything, even if it's like not an instructional thing and it just looks cool, it could be B-roll in the vlog where I could just show like 2 seconds of something and somebody goes, oh wow, that's a great way of holding something down, and then it's just an interstitial in my vlog. So everything is just like pepper and spice for, other stuff. So I try not to film everything, but I end up doing it anyway. A long story there.
There was a question in the chat from Technically Woodworking. He asked, Jimmy, have you printed anything little but useful for around the house? For example, he just recently printed some mounts for a dog gate, small and simple, but impossible to find. Have you done anything like that for around the house rather than
not really. Again, I'm still just I like exploring. This is something I printed, which was in here, and I had one in my pocket, but it broke. So I've always experimented with taking a Zippo lighter and putting that ring on the bottom. So because I'm like fumbly with my hands. My hands are always dry, so I have that so I don't drop I don't smoke, but I always like to have a lighter on me just in case I could need to start a fire. I'm not a pyromaniac either. I just like fire, just for what it is. I swear. And so I printed this. This is one of the first things I printed, and it's this lighter. Obviously, wait, maybe I got one in here. I might have one on my desk. But
I thought they were knuckle dusters at first. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, it's really a combination of that thought and that thought. But is the idea to hold the Zippo lighter. I'm always thinking of something too that's kind of like, oh, here it is. Wow, I thought I lost it. So hold on, I'll show you. I'm such a creature of habit. The future Jimmy, the past Jimmy always leaves things for the future Jimmy. So the past Jimmy said the future Jimmy's going to want to find this. So this is my 3D printed version of that idea. Cool. It broke in my pocket, so it kept falling off. That's just the piece of tape that went around the middle. So
should do that in Flex. That'd be sweet in Flex. I'm at.
Oh, there you go. Shit.
Yeah, print it a little bit smaller so it slips up nice and snug and holds on.
So this is me just thinking the idea through, thinking like, it's obviously, I might have just initially taped that on there. But yeah, it's like a Zippo lighter knuckle duster kind of thing. But nothing like practical yet. It's it's funny. I see people force fitting like things into other things. Like, oh, let me print this. Like, I could say, oh, this is like the leg of my stool. But it has to kind of happen naturally.
Yeah.
So nothing really good yet.
One of the things that I did. You had said early on about at the beginning of the podcast or the stream about printing all the trinkets. You can only print so many trinkets. So 3D printing for useful, practical prints. One of the things I did that you can't find in the story exactly what I did. You know how they make the doorknob covers, so like kid-proof doorknob covers that rotate?
I can't work those things.
That are exactly the same shape and design as my existing doorknobs in my house, which is an old style doorknob. They look exactly the same. They're just slightly bigger than the doorknob, so they slip on it and have finger holes in it. If you went to the store and bought them, you'd have that big round knob that's meant for a front door, generic fits any doorknob type of deal. Stuff like it's cool to like your Zippo lighters. Pooch said about using TPU to make a snug fit that slips on here, and now you've got it. So
I keep thinking of ways of coming up with a cool thing to hold a razor blade. That's another thing. And then I've talked about this a couple of different places. So some people might know what I'm about to say, but I doubt it. I'm trying to show you here something. So I'm manufacturing these. We just ordered 2,000 of them. Here. We just ordered 2,000 of these, me and my business partner.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
These big razor blades. They're made in 420 stainless, hardened stainless. And this one I experimented with putting a serrated edge on it. But they're one-sided razor blades. I mean, the bevel is one-sided. And the factory, I sent them samples that I handmade last year, and they sent back this only. I actually sent them pictures of my samples and an SLA file, Illustrator file of the perimeter, and so they beveled one side by accident, and instead of beveling both sides. And for a minute, I was like, oh damn, I wanted both sides beveled, but after playing around with it, this is one of my hand samples where it's beveled on both sides. It's also much thicker.
Jimmy, you gotta put on Instagram using one of those to clear your bed to scrape your print off.
Oh yeah. So I've been incorporating, because I have so many of these samples laying around. I've been incorporating them slowly into me just working. But I know there's going to be. So again, let me back up a second. So when I sell these, they're going to be sold in like oil wrap paper, like a machinist paper. They're going to be fairly cheap. I'm still not sure of the final price, but they might be about $20 a piece. And I'm hoping people will figure out what to do with them. I'm not going to sell a sheath with it. You buy it, unwrap it out of the paper. So I'm hoping there's going to be a whole universe of 3D prints, handles that can be 3D printed. So
I want to shave with it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is the leather sheath that I made for it. It slips.
Nice.
It slips completely into the leather sheath, right? So it goes all the way in. But if you take it out of the leather sheath, I see this as a 3D printed thing. Flip it upside down. So now you have a razor blade. And then again, because you have one flat side, it makes certain, like riding a ruler, you get like a nice marking gauge. You know.
How's the edge on that thing?
It's really sharp.
Yeah, will it hold it? Like,
Sharp.
I don't. What kind of stainless is it?
420. It's like a 50-52 Rockwell. It's pretty good. You know, but I want to sell these so that they get beat up. I'm buying them from like a kitchen knife company. They're making them for me. So I want them to like get beat up. I want people to use them. That's why I'm selling them cheap enough where people will actually start to use them. I might sell a pack of 5 for like $100 or something like that. You put a couple on the shelf. You use a couple of them.
They look like it'd be throwing knives, man. How the weighting on it?
Oh, yeah, it's, you know, there's going to be a lot of cocaine jokes when these make it out.
Chop, 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 chop.
Yeah, chop an onion. And the factory got the sample wrong, so a couple of them are bigger than other ones. Anyway, it's basically gonna be like that, but with a straight edge. And then the next razor blade I want to make, which is an obvious progression, is you know, the regular straight razors that you kind of use as like a utility razor to scrape a sticker off a window.
Yep.
I'm looking for. I have a box of them here somewhere. Oh, here they are.
You found yours?
You know, these kind of razor blades.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be, if these sell, people want them, I'm going to make those next.
That's cool.
And I'm putting them out there because I want people to, you know, 3D print, leather work, make their own versions of what these are going to be for. Jackman made a big handle utility knife out of one he took from my samples that I had here in the machine shop. And so I'm just,
saw that.
Oh, yeah. So I basically want to give everybody a starting point and then, you know, sell something cool.
That make for a cool design challenge. I like that. So it's like, oh, here's the element. Now, it's like the Iron Chef of the making world. Start with the blade, make something cool.
Yeah. This is a little bit of the packaging design.
Cool.
Something like that.
That's awesome.
Does
anybody else on the panel have questions for Jimmy? We're coming up on the 2-hour mark, and I know Jimmy said he wants to go for a late dinner.
Yeah, I want to show Jimmy some of what I created with 3D printing for making a table. So this was a jig I created where this piece is the jig.
Yep.
And I'm able to drill a hole through here. And these are my own cross dowels that I made. And I could just put a 420 screw right in there, squeeze it in there with pliers. And now I have because I wasn't paying this money for like cross dowels. It's ridiculous how much they are. It was way cheaper for me to print them. And a box of 420s is what?
And that jig at the bottom is to drill the hole in the wood? Or was that?
Yeah, so this piece here is a cross dowel. This is the bolt. But this other piece in white, like this is a sacrificial pop-out piece because the flute from the drill will wear out. So I can pop that out and replace it with a new one. And this jig is reusable. And then I used it on, this is the table that I built.
Oh, cool.
With that. But this is the cross dowels in use. So I just drilled using that jig in here, you know, and then fixed it with those bolts.
Nice.
And then this is a combination of 3D printing, CNC, electronics, woodworking to create this table. So it's at a film production company right now in use. So it's
So did you CNC out the negative and then 3D print the infill and the letters?
So no, this is acrylic. I painted it with the Rust-Oleum Ultra Matte, whatever it was, Ultimate Matte or something, and then CNC'd out the letters. You know, I took their file and Photos and Illustrator and did the vector and everything. The tooling is just a ball nose that just ran it down like a 1/10 of an inch. You know, not much, just to cut away.
The paint.
And then there's these corners, I don't know if you can see the detail, but these are corners that are actually floating. So they sit off of the piece.
Mm-hmm. I can see it's a little separated.
Yeah, there's pieces that I use that I made 3D printed. And there's even pieces that are inside that hold the lights in place that I 3D printed, rather than purchasing the pieces where you screw it in and all that. So yeah, I utilize 3D printing in this big time. So it's a pretty extensive project.
Oh yeah, I see that. Wow.
And then this part here was so it has a battery inside, so you have to plug it in to charge it. And I got a Genie marine unit battery that charges the deep cycle battery. And the plug, I just wanted them to be able to take an extension cord and plug it into the side of the table. So I designed this in Fusion 360, and I have the holes there that are able to put in, screws so that they're surface mount. And then I painted that flat black so you can't even see it. And then this piece is glued in so the plug doesn't move at all. And you can just plug your extension cord right into the side of the table.
Nice.
When you were building your shop, you had scissors lifts in there to build your new workshop. You know how the outlet that you plug the extension cord in to charge the scissors lift?
Yes.
That's basically what John modeled for his table with that.
Oh yeah.
And then this is so rather than doing edging, and because it's MDF that I use, rather than doing edging, I 3D printed these pieces and glued them together with CA glue, and then the whole thing got painted in that Rust-Oleum flat black to give it a nice industrial look. And then these are the floating corners, and the floating corners actually pop on. So I don't know if I have any pieces. So this is like the battery I was testing. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is the parts that I designed in Fusion 360, and it just allows one part gets screwed onto the floating corner and the other part gets screwed onto the table itself.
Yeah.
So it can slide right on. And that's how I incorporated 3D printing into this. And then Chuck was mentioning how he did the clamps, and I did something a little similar to allow me to hold these pieces in place so I could use my jig, because I'm like a one-man team. I don't have anybody helping me in my shop.
Yeah.
So yep. This is how I started a sketch in like Khan Academy style on the computer.
Oh, yeah.
Just did a sketch.
Very cool.
One other thing I want to show you is a battery cover I designed for the rigid batteries. So it took me like 11 revisions to get it perfect, but you can screw it right onto the wall, and then you can slap your battery right into it. And then hit the orange buttons, like you remove the rigid battery pack from your drill or whatever. It snaps right into place. That's all.
I'm laughing at who's doing it with Jason. He's getting a little smarty pants at you guys.
He's my co-host. So you're going to have to deal with him when you come on our show, the What Is Good podcast.
He goes, you printed the carpet. He goes, you printed the carpet on the thing.
he's a pain in my ruckus, man. But sometimes you got to muzzle him. Yeah, he's good-hearted, but yeah, you got to muzzle
him. Jimmy, since you've got into 3D printing, how has the other communities, the metal workers and the woodwork workers that you communicate with, how are they finding 3D printing?
Oh, everybody just thinks I'm a crackpot, so they leave me alone. Nobody bothers with me. I have my fans that just accept me for who I am, and which is wonderful. And then there's always the haters. When you're getting lots and lots of views on a video, like I always say, it's like swimming in the deep end of the ocean. You're gonna get people. You're gonna get like sharks and enemies like grabbing at your toes. So when you get a lot of views, you're in the deep end of the ocean, and you just don't know who's gonna come snipping at your feet. You just got to ignore them.
Yeah.
It's a sign of success. So that's what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's my whole motivation is just to keep learning. I know there are I know Bob is always very considerate of not showing too much technology on his channel because he's afraid it's going to alienate his fans. And he's doing something right. Obviously, Bob Clegg is doing very well. But me personally, I just want to learn and share what I'm learning. Even if it's expensive, even if it's a free tool that I get from somebody, I just want to keep learning and keep sharing because it inspires people, and honestly, it inspires me. So I don't want to stop.
I wanted to ask, you've been producing. How long you been doing YouTube now?
I started doing YouTube about 2012 is when I got serious about YouTube. If you go back and look, I mean, I started YouTube in 2006 when it first came out, just so I could grab my name. I didn't want anybody to take my name. Not that there was anybody going to take my name at the time, because I was really nobody. I did have a TV show, but I guess that might be why I opened the YouTube channel, just so that I can save my name. That was in 2006. I put up a couple of little portfolio things that nobody watched. Nobody was looking at them. I wasn't promoting them. I mean, over the course of the years, they were getting like a couple of hundred views. And
well, that's what I wanted to ask. So it's like, what is it like doing the YouTube side of production and then doing more of the mainstream stuff? Because obviously you've done mainstream TV and all that too.
Yeah, well, YouTube it's just if you could imagine like the difference between going to work every day with everybody, you like it, it's cool, but you got to see that annoying guy that drives you crazy. And then, at the end of the day, you run home to your garage and you work for yourself, and you're just like, God, this is what I really want to do. That's exactly the difference between doing television and doing YouTube. But I must say, I am very fortunate to be selected to be on TV because, it can be very lucrative. I haven't made it's a double-edged sword, because if you go on one TV show, people think, oh, you're a millionaire,
Yeah.
But you don't. You're not a millionaire. You almost lose money because you got to give up certain aspects, especially if you're a freelancer. You got to tell everybody you're building stuff for, I'm going to be off for 2 months, and then they forget about you in 2 months, and you get spit out of the TV world, and you go back to reality, and you're like, hey, I'm available again. They're like, oh, you don't need work. You're a TV star now. You're like, no. I need work. I need work. Well, you just did a TV show. You must be rich. No. I'm not rich. So it's a double-edged sword, and like I said, it is in this stage of my career. I've done the second season of Making It, which is the NBC TV show, and that'll be out, I think, in the fall. And I'm looking forward to that because something feels different about this one. Who knows? I mean, it could be wrong, it could be right, but this new episode of Making It feels like it's going to be something special, just because the contestants were great, and we had some good time. I wasn't really featured much on season 1. I don't know the final edit of season 2, but I was on camera a lot more often on season 2, which is when we just taped. So who knows?
Is that what you were just in California for? Or were we just wrapping up shooting on that? Yeah.
Yep. We just did that was a 4-week shoot. We did 8 episodes for Making It season 2. And then actually leading up to it, it's funny because like I did season 1 and I was hardly on it, and I didn't expect to be asked back for season 2. And then it was taking them so long to let me know, because they did kind of hint that they would need me. And then when they finally asked me, I was kind of like, my schedule was getting real busy. And I said to my agent, I'm like, yeah, I got so many other things to do right now. And he just goes, are you crazy? You're saying no to a hit NBC TV show? Is that what you want me to say? You want me to say no? He goes, I'm not going to let you say no. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And I mean, the money's not great, but
twist my arm.
Yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at. But he yelled at me like that. He goes, dude, you don't know. This could lead to so many other things. He goes, just do it and stop being a baby. And I said, okay, I'll do it.
Just remember, if season 2 comes out and Jimmy's not featured on it, the hashtag "Where's Jimmy?" Tag AD.
Yeah. I comment a lot on the videos.
Hopefully it'll be There's Jimmy. That would be
There's Jimmy.
There's Jimmy. There we go. If Jimmy's on, I think we did that during season 1. Every episode I watched, it was where I had tagged hashtag "Where's Jimmy?" and then there was one where they did catch you in it, and I did "There's Jimmy."
You guys want to hear something funny? Graz, Graz makes. You guys watch Graz? Graz makes. Yeah, he's a friend of mine from Boston who does YouTube videos, and Graz and Jackman were the 2 guys that were on every single time there was a post from the TV show. They were like, "Where's Jimmy? Where's Jimmy?" And they were really funny. They're like a comedy team, those 2. and they were very funny. And then fast forward to now, they asked me to suggest people to be on the show, like like 9 months ago, and I suggested a whole bunch of people, and one of them was Graz, and not even thinking. And so Graz goes through the casting process. He ultimately wasn't chosen to be on the season, but Graz turns to me and goes, "Do you think they didn't pick me because I did the Where's Jimmy? I did the Where's Jimmy thing so much last year, without thinking even a thought in his mind that he might ever be like talking to the casting people."
That's funny.
Yeah, I said, Graz, I'm sure they have absolutely no realization that you are the guy that constantly hounded every single Instagram post with Where's Jimmy. I don't think they noticed.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're close to the 2-hour mark. So let's, before we do outros, Jimmy, anybody looking into 3D printing, you say go for it, jump, right?
Oh, of course. I mean, unlike laser cutting, which is a $4,000 or $5,000 investment, unlike a good quality CNC machine, which for instance, a ShopBot is $6,000 or $7,000 for a desktop. Even an X-Carve is $1,000. A good 3D printer is what, guys? What are we looking at? $300, $400, $500 at the most.
Depends what you call good, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you could get, I'm getting quality prints on the CR10, and by all accounts, what is it, about $400?
Yeah, it's about 300. Yeah, about $300.
So that's what I'm saying. It's an easy leap. It's a real easy leap, and it's not a huge investment. And say you jump into it, and you're not having a great time with it. You give it to a son or daughter or a nephew or a colleague, and then let them get into it. So it's a good way of spreading the love.
Yep. And for anybody who does make that jump or has made the jump and they're struggling with it, jump on Twitter. Almost all of us on the panel here are active on Twitter. These streams, come on and ask questions. That's what we're all here to do, is to help other people learn. And
watch Filament Friday.
That's actually a really good starting point. Chuck's bits on Tinkercad are very useful.
Yeah, what were you awarded, Chuck? Tinkercad something? What was it?
Oh, I'm on the Tinkercad advisory team.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Like, how many people do you know are on the Tinkercad advisory team? I know Chuck. I don't know anybody else.
So, Chuck, as the mentor to Jimmy to get him set up with a good 3D printer that he's now able to really use for his projects, what would you tell everybody who's looking at 3D printing for their workshop?
Oh yeah, for their workshop. This has been a tough one because with the sawdust and everything else, it's in, if you're working at stuff, I recommend you have something enclosed. But then I've seen some real creative things where they take like a CR10 or a Ender 3 or whatever and build a beautiful box around it because that's what they're good at. So in that, I started thinking, well, you don't really need this enclosed machine. Just make your own enclosure. So as you guys know on my channel, I've always focused on the sub $500 printers. But this Ender 3, I wasn't that impressed when I first got it, but it's really amazed me what you can get for $200, for under $200 to get started. Like Jimmy said, if you don't want to, continue, pass it on to a kid or somebody else, they'll use it. But any of the Creality have been great for me. I got a batch of CR10s, TR10 minis back here, same as Jimmy's got there. But the Ender 3, to me, if you're just getting started, $200, buy some filament, you're ready to go. Build a nice box for it so it's protected, and get started. That's a place to start.
I have my 3D printer here in my office, so it's here at the house. So it's not in my big workshop because it'll get lost there, and it's a bit of a fragile thing. So I have it here so nothing falls into it and keeps it from getting dusty.
I'm seeing in the chat, you guys, the conversation tonight looks like it may have given people the kick they needed to over the edge to get a 3D printer. Oak and Axe Custom Woodworking said seriously might have to get one. Doing it with Jason said he figured the 3D printers were way more expensive than CNCs. CNC routers, I'm assuming he means. So, Jimmy, I'd like to thank you for coming on. And
thank you, guys. This is great.
if you ever want to join us in any other streams, you've got questions, you've got Chuck, you've got all of us at your fingertips.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
So let's go ahead. We'll run through with outros, and we'll start off with our guest of the evening, Jimmy. Tell everybody where they can find you, the podcasts that you do. I know we left that out in the intro.
Yeah, I do. You can find me on YouTube under my name, Jimmy Diresta. And I do a podcast with Bob and Dave, Bob Claggett and Dave Picciuto. That's called Making It. Coincidentally, that's the name of the TV show that I'm going to be on this season. I was on season 1 for about 30 seconds, but I'll be on season 2, hopefully for a little longer than that. And then the second podcast I do is called the Fitzall Podcast. It's a bit salty. It's a bit spicy, the language. It's me and Andrew and Eric. We talk about antique tool recovery, repair, and restoration. Talking about power hammers, antique printing presses, all heavy iron. And Instagram under my name, and my Instagram story is kind of ongoing with just whatever activity I'm doing at the moment. So thank you, guys. Thank you all very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. I'll be in touch with you for a podcast.
Right on. So when do we hang up, or do I hang up? When do we say goodbye?
We'll run through the outros, and then if loose Jimmy at that point, go for it.
Yeah. No, I'm in no rush to jump out. I was just trying to do the proper etiquette. That's all.
All right. Next up, we've got Chuck.
Yeah. So I'm serious. You guys are looking to get started. There's a lot of great places, but filamentfriday.com will take you right to my channel. I've got a bunch of videos to help people get started. That's my focus. It's not so much just trying to get technical. I want more people to get in this hobby and enjoy it. And the only way to really get started is to get a 3D printer. Once you have one, you'll start coming up with ideas to print. If you're going to wait till you get that perfect thing to print and then buy one, you're overthinking it. Just get a printer.
That's what I said. I got the printer. I started printing a little skull that I took off a Thingiverse. I printed it big, little, this. I was printed it like 4 times.
Exactly. And once you, like I said, once you got one, now my wife's telling me stuff. She wants me to print all the time. You'll just start printing. So yeah, you can buy really good printers for several $1,000s, but grow into that. Start out with a small one and work your way into it. And there you go. Perfect. Just resize. And you can resize it however you want. So anyway, my outro, just check out the channel, filamentfriday.com. Take you right there. If you want to get a hold of me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Chuck Hellebuyck, if you can spell my last name. And have fun, man. Just have fun with it.
And just to add to that, we've been talking tonight about the price of 3D printers. To get a decent 3D printer that you can put to work right away. Just a credit to Chuck. He does an excellent job. His channel has been focused on sub $500 printers for the majority of the printers that he uses. Almost all the printers that Chuck uses in his print farm are under $500. They're CR10, CR10S, CR10 minis. The same printer Jimmy has. I have multiple CR10s, and really Chuck was a big proponent to the reason why I have 6 CR10s. So definitely check out Chuck's channel. If you're on that edge, but you're not sure what to get, Chuck's been doing a great job focusing on those lower cost printers and getting excellent quality prints out of them. So.
Thanks, man.
Who's doing it with Jason? Do we know who that is?
Jimmy. He is my co-host for the What Is Good podcast.
He's like, you're on the podcast with that make something guy.
Yeah. He's quite a trip.
The heckler of the night.
Yeah, he is. You get him wound up, and there's no stopping him.
He's funny.
Right.
He is extremely.
Next up, we've got Wes.
Hey, yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter under Geeksmithing. I post any number of projects I'm working on at any given time. Sometimes they end up with 3D printing related stuff. Sometimes not. I recently got a resin printer that I've been dabbling with. I got an Anycubic Photon that I've been having a lot of fun with. So that's kind of my current experimenting platform of choice right now. But thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Wes. And next up, we've got John from You Do It.
Hey, this is John. Do you do it? I apologize profusely for Jason's behavior tonight. He's really a good guy. He just says some things. So you can find me on YouTube. You do it. UDOIT2 on YouTube. I'll paste my link in there. And then on Instagram, I'm u.do.it. And on Twitter, u_do_it. And I do a lot of makerspace and DIY stuff, and I use all type of technologies to create whatever it is, whether it's woodworking or CNC, 3D printing. I have yet to get into welding and metalworking, but that's something that I'm hoping Chad from Mancrafting can help me with. And then I'm looking to maybe employ some of Matt Haas's time. He's in Awesome Wood Things. He's on right now in chat. Get some of his time to help me with scroll saw stuff. So thanks everyone, and thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
All right, next up we've got Richard.
I'm Richard Murray, and the channel is ZDM. The website ZDM.com links you into everything. When I started out, I tried focusing on model trains. I've been getting into other things. What's on the printer right now is this. This is a camera mount. It fits on a mic stand. And if I hit the right button here, this is something we never talked about, but with 3D printing, you can print things that have moving parts inside of them. So that's one print. And it opens up whole new worlds. Let's see if I hit that one. We get the right screen. There it is, the full part being printed right now. With two joints, I'll be able to add the pressure to it and add cameras to any of the mic stands I have around here. So getting into more practical prints and doing other things, but I am trying to focus on the 3D printing for model trains. And yeah, thanks. It was great having you on, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
And next up, we've got Pooch.
What is up, everybody? I am Alan Puccinelli. Everybody calls me Pooch. I can be found on YouTube and Repcord under, YouTube and Twitter and Instagram under Repcord, REPKORD. I also host a bi-weekly show called Community Catch-Up. If you're into finding out what's the latest and greatest in the world of making, we do kind of a every 2-week review show that is submitted by user tagging of what's cool. So I highly suggest checking that out. And the one thing I wanted to share before jumping off was inspired by Chuck from way back. Let me see here. If I toggle over to this guy. Oh, no, you know what? I'm on the wrong thing. Hold on. I know technology, I swear.
While you're doing that, I forgot to mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Joel and I are finally going to get, Joel, 3D Printing Nerd, we're finally going to get our podcast going. We've been only talking about it for 3 years, so it sounds like we're finally going to get this going. So
yeah, that's awesome, Chuck.
So we're looking forward to that.
Do you have a name picked out yet, Chuck?
No. Chuck and Joel do a podcast.
Been talking about that a while.
3 years we've been talking about. We're finally going to do it.
All right, here it is. So Chuck does a lot of Tinkercad videos and stuff, and so I actually have a more modern Fusion version of this as well. But I did do a box in fully in Tinkercad.
Cool.
I actually teach this in my son's school, and I've done a couple classes myself, and I think it's just a really cool beginner program. And so if you're looking into getting into doing a little bit of modeling and you're not sure where to start, that's not a bad place to do it. Check out Chuck's channel for all kinds of awesome tutorials on it.
Cool. You sharing that file?
Eventually I will, yes.
All right, cool.
Cool. Thanks, Pooch.
Yeah.
And we've got Anthony.
Hey, I'm Anthony Tackett. I am a maker based out of the Kansas City area. I have a channel. It's under my name, Anthony Tackett, on YouTube. You can find me under Tackett Design on Instagram and Twitter, and probably Facebook too. Really enjoy 3D printing, CNC work, woodworking, whatever, the occasional bass fishing video. I break 3D printers just as often as I use them. So you'll see a lot of that type of stuff. But it's fun, and I would, along with everyone else, encourage you to pick it up and give it a shot.
Thanks, Anthony. All right, everybody. That brings it back to me. I'm Matt from the YouTube channel How I Do It, and also the organizer of the Friday Night 3D Printing Community Hangout. The next F3DPCH is going to be on May 10th. That is at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is the European stream, hosted by Martin from 3D Printing Iceland. The next US stream is going to be May 17th at 10 p.m. Eastern. That one is going to be 3D printing in the classroom. We have multiple educators from the range of grade school up to universities, as well as educators from makerspaces coming on, and possibly a few educators that are a little bit new to 3D printing, and they're looking for how they can roll 3D printing into their curriculum and make it an educational asset to the classroom. So that's going to be May 17th at 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find the Friday Night 3D Printing Community Hangout on Twitter, twitter.com/F3DPCH, YouTube, youtube.com/Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout, and on Facebook as well, just search Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout. If you'd like to be on the streams, please get in touch with me on Twitter. We'll send you a form for your information, and you can be a panelist. If there's a certain topic that you'd like to discuss or something you have a specialty in that you'd like to talk to the community about, get in touch with me as well to become a guest on an upcoming stream. We're always looking for topic suggestions and guest suggestions for the streams. From all of us on the Friday Night Hangouts, I would like to thank Jimmy again for coming.
Thank you.
And thank Taylor for allowing you to stay for 2 additional hours. And Jimmy, just like any of our guests, you're more than welcome to join us at any given time.
Thank you.
If there's a topic that strikes your interest or you want to learn more about, you can feel free to jump in as a panelist or jump in the chat as well. So,
well, thank you, brother.
Thank you, everybody in the chat tonight, for questions, for keeping the conversation flowing, and we'll catch you guys on the next Friday Night Hangout.
Awesome.
Guys, I'm gonna dip out. Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it. And I noticed a couple of familiar names in the chat, so thank you guys.
We had Jackman at the very beginning.
Oh, we had Jackman in the beginning.
Yeah,
he was there at the very beginning.
Yep.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I see Matt from Awesome Wood Things is in there, so that's cool.
Good people for sure.
Yep.
So.
All right, guys. Love you. I'll see you soon.
See you later, Jimmy. Good hanging with you, man. Bye.
What do you guys think? Do you just want to keep the stream going? You want to end it here? Anything you just want to talk about? Pooch, any new products? Or Chuck, any new products coming out?
We'll have the toolkits out in about 3 weeks. They'll be back in stock, and we should have full stock of Filament Friday filament soon as well, about the same time sort of frame. But a lot of people have been looking for the toolkit, so stay tuned. It's coming.
Yeah. For those of you who might have gotten kicked over the edge, you're right there on the edge. If you do decide to jump and buy a 3D printer, Chuck's toolkit is what, $25?
No, it's $39.99, and gives you basically all the core tools you'll want to get started with 3D printing. And it'll be available on Amazon, and use some of the links of some of the the YouTubers out there, support them. But yeah, it's $39.99, and the caliper is improved. We got a few other improvements we made, so it should be a lot better.
It's a good kit. I'll vouch for it.
Definitely is a good kit. Yep.
Even for somebody who has 3D printers and already has a bunch of tools, it's an awesome kit because it has a nice pouch to keep everything in its place. And it's got wire brushes. There's a brass wire brush, a steel wire brush, and a soft bristle brush. Deburring tool, all kinds of cool stuff in there. Really useful stuff for 3D printing and finishing 3D prints.
Yeah, I wish I'd have one to show, but I don't even have one to show right now.
Yeah, they've been sold out. They've been sold out a while, huh?
Yeah, it was a real hit. We actually stocked what we thought was 6 months worth, and it sold out in about a month and a half. So It's been really, really popular. So we got a lot more coming in.
Awesome.
Were you going to say something, Pooch? Anything cool, exciting, and upcoming?
Yeah, I got a lot of actually things up my sleeve, but what I will reveal is I think a lot of you guys have heard we're Repbox is across the pond now and being distributed in the EU, which is huge because I get like 30 emails a week from people all over the world asking when they can get a hold of one, which blows my mind still. But MVO Engineering was awesome and has started carrying them as a distributor. And as such, we fast-tracked the production of version 2, which I was hoping to announce this week, but we're still putting the finishing touches on it. It's vastly improved, though, talking about making improvements to products. The ceiling's much better. It holds 6 spools instead of 5 now, and a lot of other variable exit points and all kinds of interesting additional features that you'll see in the coming weeks. So that's exciting. And the other big announcement is we're going to be bundling it with the Mosaic palette. So if you're thinking about getting a palette, it's a good opportunity to get it bundled and get a Repbox at a reduced price. So look for that. The new store should also be launching in line with when Repbox 2 comes out. And we'll have a whole bunch of stuff aside from just filament and Repboxes. And I've got 3D gloop and all kinds of other interesting things that have been approached to resell. So we're excited to get that off the ground.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So John's showing all the tools of the 3.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I threw a link in the chat to the Filament Friday toolkit as well as to Pooch, does repbox.com go to Repcord?
No, actually, repcore.com/repbox does, but I don't own repbox.com. No. You know what? Travis does own repbox.com. I don't know if it's being forwarded currently. That's a very good thing to have done.
There's the updated
the handle for the deburring, right?
Yep, the deburring tool.
Yeah, and that comes with a whole bunch of extra heads, which is awesome.
You got
that's
the heads there, right, for deburring.
Hey, Chuck, did you go to the steel calipers?
No, we'd have to charge a whole lot more. But
yeah,
well, we still have the plastic calipers, but they're a lot tighter, a lot more robust.
Do they have an auto shut-off?
Yeah, the other ones had an auto shut off. The problem is it had an auto on too.
The auto on is what it's too sensitive.
You look at it the wrong way, it would turn on and kill your battery.
That's really the most important part right there.
There you go. Okay.
That makes your printer 10 times faster.
You can level your bed with the back of it too.
There you go. The wire brushes that come in the Filament Friday toolkit, Chuck, I got to give you some credit with those. I found a set of what looked like identical brushes at the dollar store, and just needed some extra ones, some to go with different printers and stuff. I bought them. The very first time I used them, the handle snapped off right at the brush. So yours don't do that.
No, we actually, the thing is, we tested every one of those things. We got samples, multiple samples, went through, and even like the calipers are really good. But then once we bought big volume, that's when we got the crap shipped to us. And we were stuck with it. We didn't know it until too late. Yeah, and that's the glue I recommend. If you're printing on glass, I know a lot of people like the other products that are out there. I'm not going to mention, but I just love the Avery glue stick, Avery permanent glue stick. I have used. That's what I gave Jimmy. He loves it. It's working for him. In fact, I think I gave Jimmy a whole toolkit, but it works so well. One swipe on glass, and that stuff just holds. So I haven't had to do anything else.
Oh, John, you hit your keyboard. Or he's actually going to
He'll be right back.
Anybody have anything else you want to talk about tonight? Show off projects you're working on, anything like that?
Oh, no, I should show this off, but what I needed tonight was a little block like that, dead simple, just a few seconds. Look over at the printer. This is what it's printing. It's a little thing about inches and millimeters. Fortunately, I caught it just at 2 layers going, what is it doing over there? But I got the part I needed, which means I'm going to have to mow the lawn tomorrow. But,
You know, the thing I loved about, you know, getting Jimmy on here, but just getting involved with him was, it's just, there's a whole nother community out there, especially, like I said, the woodworkers and that. I've talked to many of them, and they just don't see, or many of them still don't see the capabilities or what you can do with a 3D printer. It's, you know, it's a toy to them, or they don't, it's more technology they don't want to learn. Yet a lot of them are using SketchUp and stuff. And I said, you know, it's really not that much harder. And the whole idea was, you know, getting Jimmy, and now a few other people have come along and followed Jimmy. It's a whole community I think could really benefit from this. And that's what I want to see. I've been saying it since day one. I want to see the community grow. And that's why I focused on the low-cost printers, because more people can afford to get into it then. But that's what I love, Jimmy getting involved. And like I said, he was like a fish to water. He just took off with it, and it was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been kind of with his Making It podcast with Bob Claggett and David Picciuto, and watching Twitter, Instagram, and stuff. Watched Jimmy go along with 3D printing. I knew about the printers that he had gotten in the past. I didn't know about the CraftBot, but I knew about the Delta that he got a couple years ago. They just basically didn't want to work for him right out of the box. And watching the progression, I'm really interested to see where Jimmy goes in the future with it. Like right now, he's printing, you know, the prototype stuff. I can't wait to see if he breaks into that making practical items with the printer, or part of his project that he's working on. Like I was actually thinking during the stream, nylon. He could use nylon to print bushings to go in the hinges that he makes, things like that, just to make things last longer, that type of deal.
Yeah. The only problem is that the printers he's got, you know, the Creality, they're really not good at printing nylon, because they won't go above 235, 240 max, you know.
Right.
That's why they're a gateway printer, Chuck.
Exactly. Yeah, you got him started, and now he's got a second one already. I mean, it didn't take long.
You know, along those lines, I was curious, Chuck, what your thoughts were. Like, one of my first printers was a kit printer, and I think that really did a lot for me, the way I learned actually building the printer and understanding. Because if there's one thing that's true, if you're getting into this, you need to not be afraid to get your hands dirty. This is not a plug and play thing yet. It's gotten a lot better, but you're going to have failures. You're going to have issues. Stuff's going to break, and you need to feel okay about potentially having to replace a part here and there, whatever. And the kit is a great way to have an understanding from the get-go. What ideas do you guys have for an affordable kit, or is there one that you can think of?
Well, the Ender 3.
Is the Ender 3 it's not a partial assemble the way that the CR10 is?
No, it takes you about an hour to put it together, and you can still screw it up if you don't do it right. But
I didn't realize that. I've never had an Ender, so I didn't know.
Yeah, and I was thinking if you want to go bigger scale, depending on what you're looking at, I know the Folgertech kits, the FT5 and the FT6 is pretty new, so I don't want to like push anybody that direction just yet till we see a lot more results from people. But there's a huge community around the Folgertech printers, and the FT5. I know Chris Pileski has one.
What's the price point on that one?
Right around 700. It's not sub 500.
So you're getting into Prusa territory with that then too.
Yeah, except you have a build volume that's as big as the CR10.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty big printer. So if you want to do bigger things right off the bat, that might be, and it's kind of like the CR10. It's a big printer. It prints small really well too, as well as printing big. That's one. My very first printer, Pooch, I was just like you. I started out with a kit. I got the Folgertech Console, their Delta, even after being told not to get a Delta.
You started with the Delta kit?
Yep.
That's
it was literally a box. Man. It was a box this big that I got, and it was, I don't know, however tall the printer is.
Sure.
I think it's like 2.5 feet tall. That's all this box was. Nothing was attached to itself, except for maybe a few screws and nuts that managed to vibrate themselves together.
Together. Nice.
Yep.
Hey guys, I'm gonna duck out. I appreciate the opportunity to hop on and hope to do it more in the future.
All right, Anthony. Yeah, thanks for coming
Hey,
on.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Hey, Anthony. Have a
Have a
good
good
night.
night.
Chuck, Sherry from chat wants you to show your printer farm if you're able to.
Okay. It's kind of a mess. It's a scattered mess, but
I was glad to see that angle tonight, Chuck. It makes me feel better about my office.
You should see
Yeah.
my office.
let's see if I can do this here.
Not everybody's farm looks like Prush's like aisle.
Okay, so
and-
so there's a big part of it. You can see 1, 2. Let's see if I can get my finger to work here. 3, 4, 5, and then over. And I got some. I was filming today, but there's a.
But there's the old,
There's a.
Look at all the lawn house up there on the top.
look at the old boy over there.
Yeah, if you really want to see, yeah, look at that's the parts of the print farm over there on the rack. So there's some old stuff, there's some new stuff. So actually, what I've got right now set up mainly is the well, there's another one over here, but I got like 6 printers now running there in the background. Normally, right now they're shut off. So right back here is the main print farm. And then what I'll do is I'll take printers off this rack over here. I got extra ones that I'll bring in if I need more stuff to print, if I'm running behind to catch up, and then those will go back over on the rack if I'm, caught up. So the print farm at any point in time will always have those 5 running, and then plus or minus, 2 or 3 printers. And that's pretty much the print farm. So the mostly CR10 minis, 1 CR10, and then some Ender 3s.
Can I point out one thing, Chuck?
Yeah.
I'm the only guy who has 1 printer.
I don't even understand what you're saying. 1 printer? Like just in that office, you mean, right?
No. I possess 1 printer.
I didn't think that was allowed.
Yeah.
And I'm still a member of F3DPCH.
Hey, even Wes has upgraded. How many more printers do you have since you were on the Hangout the last time, Wes?
I acquired a resin printer since then. So I've got 3 total. Yeah, even me. What do you mean, even me?
Even you.
I'm holding at 3, so my 2 Pruzes and my.
I'm up to 12 now, and I don't think I'm going any higher than that without getting rid of something. 12 that are functioning and being used almost on a daily basis. Somebody asked in the chat why I have 10 printers. I have 12 total that are functioning. Normally, all those printers are running other than during the streams. I usually, if anything, just the CR10 in the enclosure runs during the stream.
Chuck, Sherry has a follow-up question. What are the main objects that you like to mass print? Like, do you have anything that you print for things that you sell, or is it really just based on a video that you produce?
Mail flags.
Yeah. Pretty much everything the print farm makes, I sell. Let's see. I mean, let's see. There's mailbox flag, 2-piece, snaps together. So that gets sold. I've got some little tiny plugs that I do for a customer that I can't fully say what they do, but
You're off
so that's
camera. Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, no, maybe that wasn't. Yeah, there we go.
So it's a little tiny plug that they make changes constantly. So to inject and mold it would cost too much. So I just kind of print them for them.
It looks like the plug that I made for my ice machine water trough. The drain. I lost the one that was in there and printed one, and it looks like identical to it.
There's another flag that I print that's way off camera here that I can't reach. But that was the main one that started it all. So it was I did that one on Filament Friday. I did a mailbox flag to fix my mailbox because I couldn't find one. And then when I threw a couple up on eBay just to see if anyone else needed a flag, and it sold like in one day. So I threw a couple more up there. They sold. So next thing you know, I was printing and selling and couldn't keep up. I've been selling that now for 4 years. It's helped finance the channel through the early years of that.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
We're gonna.
Mailbox flag.
We've crossed. I think I've sold 10,000 of those flags now in the 4 years.
What?
And still going. It's on its sixth generation.
Are you serious? 10,000? What?
Yeah, over 10,000 flags.
How many trips do you go to the post office?
The Postmaster General must know about you.
So, where I'm at now is I actually teamed up with a business partner. So we actually ship big boxes of them now and are sold in various channels. So that's when the volume really took off. But it's funny to this day. The company who makes the mailbox still does not have a replacement flag. So I am the replacement flag for the Rubbermaid mailbox.
No way. That's awesome.
Okay.
So that's it. There's a few other things that I can't show that I print for people. Some specialty clips that they're using for holding some cables. A lot of it is like things that they need volume, but it's not enough to go invest in the tooling, and they want to constantly be making changes, but they want batches of 1,000 of these or 2,000 of these, and so then I'll print those off. And now it's gotten to the point where I just constantly print. I have them in stock, and then they'll order in batches. So,
can I ask you other questions? Like the things that you have on your pegboard, are any of those things? I know what's are, but this is really sparking conversation. Are any of those things being used for holding tools up?
For 3D printing?
No. Are any of the tools being held up by 3D printing objects?
Yeah, a ton of them. Let's see, like up here, my knobs on my cabinets, those are 3D printed 2-color. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that's a 2-color with an insert, the glow in the dark, although it doesn't work as well anymore. All my sockets here, that's a 3D print holding all the sockets. That worked out great.
With the little nubs to hold the socket in place.
Yeah. So the little nubs there that just holds the socket in place. So I got all the rows of those.
Well,
do you have a 10 millimeter socket?
I got. Yes, I do.
I was going to say, Chuck's showing off his 3D prints in his workshop. John, do you mind fielding questions from the chat? I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
And I got these right here. I did a video on these. These actually pop off, so you can clip it to your belt. So it's got the T-square, and then it slides right back onto the wall.
The speed square holder.
Yeah, speed square holder. But these clips will actually clip to your belt, so you can hold that to your belt.
Nice.
What else I got here? I got these. Can you see those?
For holding the chisels. Yep.
Yeah. Chisels. That was. How do I get that in there? That was the 3D print. These are on Filament Friday.
You have them on your channel, the videos.
Yeah. So these are kind of wore out now, but my drills were held by 3D prints.
The holster. I like that.
Yeah. But it's kind of given up its ghost a little bit. I need to really print a little thicker because I used to hold a lot tighter, but now it's sagged from the weight.
I've just used a piece of PVC for that, but that's nice. You can really customize the grip for it with the 3D.
Yeah, I looked at the PVC type and it works.
Or ABS.
But, yeah, but I could print it the way I wanted it.
Right.
And that's where it came from. And then I got things like this. This is a 45-degree. It slides right on my table saw. So 45-degree goes right in the slide.
Very nice.
So that's just some of the stuff. I don't show everything on Filament Friday, but I do print a lot of stuff in my shop. And like I was trying to tell Jimmy, it's like it's an assistant to me. There's something that I need. I just make it, I print it, and use it. And then later on, if I need a video for Filament Friday and I'm running short of ideas, then maybe I'll turn that into one. But then I'll print another one and make a video out of it. But in most cases, what I've showed on Filament Friday, I'm already used, I've already printed, and then I turn it into a video.
What material did you use for your flags for the mailbox?
I originally started out with ABS, and then I found PLA actually worked better. And it's kind of funny because everyone says, you can't use PLA outside.
Right.
I tested it, and I found that PLA actually, in the long term, works better because the ABS will actually break down from the ultraviolet. That's how I selected actually the PLA that I'm using for Filament Friday filament. It was driven mainly by the flags, and even though it's in its spool, and like Jimmy was saying, it does crack if you don't keep it dry. Once it's printed, it's quite flexible and it handles the elements really, really well. So once it's gone through the printer, it becomes a very good quality print. So it's got a little bit of the quality that I wanted out of ABS, but it's truly PLA, so it prints real easy.
So we have another question where I think I need to get context around it because I don't know that I think I have an idea. So technically, Woodworking is asking you, how'd you make and find those contexts to make those orders? So there's two ways I can interpret it. You're finding somebody to help you fulfill the orders, or how did you find clients to, or how did you make yourself available for clients to find you?
That's a question that comes up a lot. The main thing is I was selling things that I created. I was selling things that I needed. And so I was putting out there on eBay and Etsy, and then clients came to me like, can you put me, like the flags? I have some people down in, I think one was down in Florida, and they needed to can you print me 20 flags, but I need it to look like this. And okay, for the right price, I would do it. But then I found it was hard to do that. So I pretty much set a minimum. I wanted to see a minimum 500 pieces, or I'm probably not going to take on the job. But just word of mouth really kind of spread as I did that. And as someone came to me and says, can you print something? I was like, well, I could print you one, as a favor, just to do it. If I know who they are. But if it isn't 500 pieces, I'm not going to waste my time. And I found that those people would actually tell someone else. He'll do he'll do 500 for you. But then when I hooked up with the business partner, he started finding more of the contacts than I did. So I just became the manufacturer, and now he handles all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and have you found that the people who you helped watch your YouTube videos, or did they already discover you from your YouTube videos?
It's probably 50-50. I mean, I've had people who watch and then, find out I'm local to them, and then they'll run into me and hey, can I ask you? In fact, I was tracked down the other day. I was in a parking lot, and the guy comes up, hey, I know you have watched your channel, and I got a print I'd love to talk to you about. And it was like his office was right there. So I was, okay, I got a minute. Convenient. So we walked in, and he handed me the thumb drive and said, and I said, all right, I'll print it for you. Yeah, you're a Filament Friday fan. I'll print it for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But other than that, no, I've had both. And then so some will become fans, and then some are already fans.
And then Robbie has a question. Robbie Mack, he wants to know if there's any plans to print American flag in the full color, the flag for the mailbox. If you were to do it in an American flag full color.
Oh, it's like a red, white, and blue version?
Yeah, MMU version. Yeah.
No, I really don't have any plans for that. It's one of the things I found. In fact, I don't even like this universal where I got the two pieces I got to snap together because it's two different prints, and then you got fit and finish because that you get variability, and then you got to assemble the things. So any extra steps like that. I mean, if you talk to A-Buzz Design, she does the multicolored prints that she sells on the Disney stuff, and that she sells on Etsy. You talk to her, she's got some real headaches sometimes trying to get those prints out. Sure. So what I shoot for is, like I said, it's sixth generation on that flag. It's because every time I tried to make it simpler and easier to print, but also stronger. But every step of the way, I try to make it easier to print so I can print faster and get, recoup my money.
Yeah, that's the most important thing when you're printing for volume is how fast. How can you optimize both the model, the print settings, as well as just the layout on the bed. I know that's one of the things I've been working on with some parts that I'm farming out, is how basically like what I did with the parts that I'm doing right now. I set it up in a way that I can print so many sets in a 24-hour period. I have 3 printers printing parts, and in 24 hours I produce one. I have to interact with the printer one time, besides occasionally checking on the camera and monitoring the print in case something fails. I start a print when I get home from work. When I get home from work the next day, I clear the bed, start the print again. That's how I kind of like try to optimize what I'm farming out as well. I don't know how you might do it, Chuck.
I work in a 4 or 8 hour shift because fortunately I work from home. So I do like technical writing in my day job and that. But I shoot for 4 hours and 8 hours. And that way I can start a print in the morning. If it's 8 hours, I can start a print in the morning, and then, kind of like evening, and then in the morning, and then at night, I'll stick around. Maybe I'll run it at night. But that's why I like 4 hours. 4 hours works better because I can do it in the morning, then I can clear it at lunch, and then clear it at dinner, and then one more time, and then just before I go to bed. And the other thing is I like about the 4 hours, if there's a bad print, which happens, I only lose a smaller portion. Where a 24-hour print, you lose a bad one, that's a lot of plastic you could potentially lose, and a lot of prints. So I really, my optimization is 4 hours. I try for a 4-hour print.
Yeah,
that's really a shoot for.
Have either of you guys played with doing sequential print mode for that reason? So like I'll do the same thing because I don't want to risk losing, or if like one fails, I can go on to the next one, as opposed to losing an entire batch and having to start fresh.
Specifically, the one model that I'm printing, I can print 10 of them on a CR10 bed. So a 300 by 300 bed. I can print 10 of those pieces, and they're really low profile pieces. I oriented them in a way that when I print the first one, the highest part's towards the back of the printer.
Exactly, you work forward.
Prints that whole part in one go, and they're long, wide pieces. They take up the whole width of the bed. So it prints that whole piece, then moves up, re-levels itself, and starts printing it doesn't re-level, but goes back to C0 and starts printing the next one, and then it again repeats the whole way out the bed, and that's in a 24-hour period. Actually, I take that back. That's in like a 4-hour period because they're quick prints.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, mainly because I'm checking every 4 hours. So if one finishes before the other, I'm gaining nothing really by that. So I just try to do it 4 hours, get them all done, and then I don't have to worry about anything hitting, and it seems to print well. So I just want it when I get there. I want them all done, so I can just clear the bed, maybe swipe a new set of glue on the glass, and then go another set.
Sherry Smith asked in the chat, Chuck, you're getting all the questions now. Can you ask Chuck if he also makes specialized buttons for game controllers?
Somebody knows a little too much.
All right, we're moving on to the next question.
I did at one point in time print something for Jimmy. Said he had bullet button shells. We did print bullet button, the plastic insert that would go into a bullet button, and that would go into a 360 controller. We don't do that anymore, but we did.
But I think Clayton has done some things where he's modified Xbox controllers. I think one of his videos that went crazy viral.
Yeah. What the heck was that? It was
a steering wheel, wasn't it?
Yeah, the steering wheel thing.
Steering wheel, that's
the
it.
Adapter, yeah.
And it used to,
so I'll put a link for this video in the chat.
Yeah, it used a linear gear and turned it into a steering wheel on top of the Xbox controller.
So if you don't know Uncle Jesse, he's a really cool dude.
Yeah, he's really did for a long time did video gaming videos, and now he does a lot of prop builds.
Well, hold on. What did he start as? He started as like doing a
Puppeteer
exercise. Wasn't he exercising on with the Xbox?
Was he?
I think he was exercising with the Xbox, and that's when he got big. Yeah.
No, I don't know that. He did do Puppeteer though too.
He was doing that long before any of the 3D printing, and that's where he kind of evolved into the 3D printing over time too.
Yeah. Chuck, Ron, the Happy Extruder asked, will the gazing globe be part of a Filament Friday video?
Gazing globe.
Wow.
Yeah, we're looking at it behind you.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is a project for the wife.
Oh, okay.
So this is it's a clear globe, and it's got an opening here. But we've got a semi like fountain. We're redoing the whole front yard. We had our septic field all redone last year, so re-landscaping. So she's got this fountain she bought, and then she wanted this clear globe put on it. So I've got to wire up a solar light that'll go up in here with LEDs. So the solar light from the top of the globe, will shine on and charge the battery and then light the LEDs. And then I got to 3D print a stand so it custom fits into the fountain. So that's a project that I'll do. And then depending on how it turns out, then I'll probably film along the way, just clips. And then it may become a Filament Friday video. Like I said, I'll do projects and I'll do them. And then if I need a video, then I'll take those clips and put it together. But so it could be. Yeah, could be. But that's a wife project. That's keeping the wife happy.
They're good at that. That was all the questions in the chat. Oh, wait. Does anyone use, I guess this is a question to all of us. Does anyone use software to manage multiple printers via web browser? Chuck, since you're farming, do you use anything like Octoprint or the rest of them just escaped my mind?
Yeah, no,
Astroprint.
I did try out that Astroprint box, which was amazing. How many people told me it was way overpriced, but which wasn't the point of the whole video. But but I did try that. They've contacted me about trying to expand it because I know Gmax I think does that. But no, I don't use any software. I've been approached by companies with that. But no, I have basically the same printers. So I can use all the files that I print are on the SD cards for any of those printers. So at any point in time, if I need to print a bunch of flags, any of the printers can print flags. I just pick that file. So it's already been set up. So I really don't need the software. I just go and, well, how many do I need? Okay, I have 3 printers. Let's have 3 printers going for a while until I catch up. So that's how I do it. The SD cards have all the files.
And because you work at home, you don't use anything like webcams or anything in any way to monitor prints at all?
No, because the thing I looked at, even if I had a webcam, and maybe remotely I could stop it, it still failed, so it's like, okay, I saved a little bit of filament. But because I'm here, I'll just come in, clear it off, start a new print. But no, I never saw a major advantage for me.
What about something like, just throwing this out there, when you print stuff, Chuck, you said you shoot for 4-hour windows. That 4-hour window, does that typically have I shouldn't say typically, but does that have the opportunity of having multiple pieces in one print job?
Oh, yeah. Well, in fact, I mean, Pooch, can I mention about us working on it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pooch actually had me quote printing parts for the rep boxes. And so he's got multiple pieces that were part of that to print. So what I did is I took the pieces and I repositioned them. So I ended up with 3 different G code files. Each one would print about 4 hours. So I could print on 3 different printers. I could print one set of rep cord or the rep box pieces in a 4-hour period and throw them in the box as long as everything passed. So yeah, there was multiple different pieces on there. I will position them and position them accordingly to get to around that 4-hour mark.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is one of the things, a lot of the prints that I'm farming might be similar.
Yeah, Matt does some too.
Yeah.
Does some.
So like the L brackets, I have a set of 7 of them in a row. For the corner brackets. With Octoprint, one of the advantages there is if one out of that row fails on me, and I happen to pull it up on the camera, but if I get lucky and it hasn't messed up any of the other ones, cancel object with Octoprint is, or cancel, not cancel object. There's another one, exclude region is what it's called. It's again for Octoprint. You can
They're both poles, aren't they?
Square, whatever shape around the area on the print bed, and it'll just stop printing that area and keep it. When it gets there, it'll just skip right back over again. That's actually pretty useful. Now you've got the luxury of like actually being home to monitor your prints to an extent. I do that remotely throughout the day. I'll check in on it, and if I have to, I'll cancel it.
Yeah, like these little guys, I'll print, I think like 20 of them, no, 30 of them on a bed. And there's some few of them will fail, but I just let it print and then just scrape those off, throw them out, but the rest are still good. So yeah, I lose a little bit of plastic, and yeah, I could do what you're describing, but it's just, I'm not monitoring it. I just come back every 4 hours.
Yeah, on smaller parts like that, and like some of the rep box parts, printing those, and if you lose one or two, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the big thing about Octoprint for me is having the webcam control over it, and it's happened a few times here. I'm using an add-on to Octoprint at the action. Yeah, so you can see the camera positions itself, or the printhead positions itself out of the way, and then the image is taken. So you get a nice video of the object drawing without the printhead in the way. So, it's the main tool for that. Also, not having to run around with SD cards is nice.
Yep.
Yeah, Octolapse is a cool one.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. If you couldn't tell from me talking about it, I do use Octoprint for all my printers. I actually built an Octoprint server, which is not a Raspberry Pi. It's a 5 or 6 year old desktop PC that I took Windows off of it and installed Ubuntu on it, Linux distribution, and put Octoprint on there. It's running 6 printers right now. Eventually, it's going to run all my printers off that one computer. Now, there's one of the things when I set that up, people were concerned about as I was talking about it, was the USB bus being too busy with all those printers. I have 3 separate USB cards in there to the motherboard USB plus 2 additional cards. I haven't seen any issues running 6 printers off of it.
Sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to head out. But thank you so much for letting me join in.
See you, Wes.
Some of you guys.
Hey, Wes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, good talking to you, Wes. I'm going to pop out also, guys. Thanks for having me on. This was an epic one.
All right. See you, John. Thanks.
See you, John.
Take care.
Thanks.
Yeah, Chuck, talking about using printers as a tool, it's interesting because a lot of the people in the space are hobbyists, and I think that's how a lot of us got our start. But it's really eye-opening when you kind of start to realize, hey, these things can pay for themselves, and you start thinking about printing for production is a whole nother ball of wax from just printing for fun, right? There's a lot of optimization and things that go into that.
Well, that's part of the reason I focused on this sub $500 printers as well. Is it was always in the back of my mind to produce stuff with them. So with a sub $500 printer, I can recoup my money faster. So there was a discussion on Twitter about which is better. Should you go with a Prusa or should you go with a Creality? And I basically lost the argument. A lot of people, no, go Prusa, and it prints faster, and definitely is capable of printing a lot more material and really good quality. But to get my money back out of it, I got to print twice as much stuff, and the Prusa, the thermistor on mine was constantly breaking. So it was like I was repairing it more. And what I liked about the Creality, it was so easy to fix that even if something broke, I could get the thing going again. And so that's when the CR10 Mini was like a nice compromise. It gave me the nice size that I could fit enough on make a 4-hour or 8-hour print. and recoup my money. Really, I got to the point I was recouping my money within 2 months. So by the third month, the printer's literally printing money. I mean, it's printing cash. I put in this spool, and it's printing things that are already sold. So it's printing cash. So that's why I settled on that. And then because I'm running them 24/7, I know pretty much every shortcut or every weakness or every thing about these Creality printers, and that made for good videos as well. So
Sure.
so it worked.
One of the things you got to hand it to Creality. I mean, it's a cheaper printer. Yes, in some ways it's cheaply built compared to like the Prusa. When you look at it, just look at the hot end on a Prusa. There's a lot more to it. It's cased in nicely. It looks great. But Chuck, you probably agree to this with the Creality, the X carriage with your hot end carriage. You can change that out. The first time you have to do it, it's a little bit of a pain because you got to put some kind of connectors on or splice wires to change the wiring over. But like on mine, any of them that I've had a problem, if I gag up a nozzle bad enough that I'm going to be heating it up, trying to pull globs of filament off of it because of a failed print, it's easy enough on that I have a hot end carriage already assembled. All I have to do is screw the wheels to it and hook the belts. I can change out a hot end on that, the whole assembly, in about 10 minutes and be back up and printing. Like, it might be cheaply built, but at the same time, repairability wise, I'd almost say they're more repairable. Quick.
No, there's value in that. Absolutely.
Yeah. When you're trying to run a farm like Chuck is, or I am, my CR10s are all that get used for the farming. My Flash Forge, my Delta, the Juan House that I have, those are my toys. Those are the ones I print my stuff on. The CR10s, unless I need to print something big, the CR10s get used for farming.
Well, the other advantage is the Creality is all metal. The hot end and is all metal. So if a print doesn't stick, I come back and I could glob on my hot end. I just heat it up and I can pull it off. For the most part, I'm not going to hurt anything.
Yep.
On my Prusa, I've had a few times where auto level, it didn't fully stick because my beds wore out from printing so much. And I can't just heat it up because that whole thing is plastic. Yeah. So in doing that, trying to get that off careful, I actually broke a PINDA sensor. And so then I had to order one from them and wait for it to ship in. And because I was printing it prints flags faster and it was good. But when I factored in all that time I lost, I go, I'm better off just getting another CR10 Mini. And that's what I did. And I sold, I had 2 Prusas. I sold one of them. And I still got one that I use occasionally that I'll use in the channel. But the print farm is all Creality for that reason. And I can have one extra, I have a hot end assembly that you can sit by it with the cable and the aviation connector on the end of it. So, I mean, I think it's like $45 or whatever, but that's a whole assembly. A few screws, take it off, screw it in place, snap it on, and I'm ready to go again. And it's all new. So that saves me a lot of time, and that time's money.
It's definitely hard to argue with it.
Well, and when your process, like you said, is you're running it in 4-hour shifts, it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't help you if the Prusa is printing faster if you're not going to be there until lunchtime anyway, right? So,
exactly.
So why not take that money you're saving and throw another printer at it rather than, you can have 2 printers for the same money as one Prusa. So it's just that strategy. You can have an army of less expensive machines or some faster or slower, but if you don't have somebody there to maintain it and to pull stuff off and on, it isn't going to do any good.
Exactly. But then when someone asks me, it's like, what printer? I'm like, well, you start with the Creality, but once you want to move up the ladder, yeah, buy a Prusa. You can do pretty much everything with it. And so my recommendation has always been start out with an Ender 3 or CR10 Mini, and then when you're ready, move up to a Prusa, and then when you want to go big and fast, then consider a CMC Artemis, because that's my path. Those 3 to me those are my 3 go-to printers, and I've recommended, and I've yet to have anyone say, that was a bad recommendation. it's worked for a lot of people. Now, some people just jump right into the Prusa because they've got the money and they want to be able to print different things. I mean, cool. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
So go.
I mean, a Prusa is not a bad start, but I agree with your take. And honestly, the answer to that question is always, well, what do you plan to do with it, right? Are you just trying to learn, or are you thinking you're going to be in it for the long haul? But to some people, the difference between $400 and $700, or maybe they want to build the kit, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Scott Latine's in the chat. He said, "Buy a lull spot." The only thing and Chuck, based on what you're printing, I think you probably would agree with this. One thing that I would like, and at some point I'm going to end up doing it, I want a CR10 size printer for the X and the Y, but not the height. Like for a lot of the batch prints that you're doing, or the for-profit prints, it's smaller, lower profile. I just want a big printer with a low profile.
Well, why don't you want the tall profile?
Well, so I love my CR10s. I just printed something from Saturday to Wednesday that's 6'8" when it's all assembled in a couple of days, and I only printed that on one printer. I was going to have multiple printers doing it, but I used the one in the enclosure back there. I love the build height for printing big stuff, but at the same time for printing like the rep box parts, for printing those, a low profile printer, something that's only like 100 millimeters tall.
That is an interesting idea. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The reason is space saving. The other side of this wall right here is where my farming printers are. I could fit a whole bunch more printers in that space if they weren't so tall, because I could build a shelving unit with all those shorter printers in it. That's the only reason I say that, for farming smaller objects.
Gotcha. Okay, so you just want it to be able to stack them.
Yeah,
apartment building.
Space saving. Yep.
Okay.
You might be onto something there, Matt. That's interesting. Because why not? You could very easily just chop the top off of a CR10, edit the firmware. I mean, that's easy enough to do.
Oh yeah, even if you don't,
you don't have to edit the firmware.
Yeah, you just chop the rails off, cut the.
If you wanted the limit, I guess you could still have limits on it.
If you wanted the soft limit in it, yeah, you'd change the firmware to match the build height of it. But as long as hey, don't send anything over 100 millimeters to that printer, you're good.
Just change your profile in your slicer, and you never.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You never get bigger,
that's interesting, because a lot of people, when they're talking about getting a printer, it's like you're thinking you get caught up in that megapixel game. Like, well, why would I want 5 megapixels when I get 10 megapixels, whatever? Why not get a 300 by 300 or 400 by 400? And the truth is, I don't know about you guys, but the majority of the stuff I print probably prints in a 150 square. The majority, 80% of the time. So yeah, and I mean, it's nice to have that volume. Like on the few times, like I printed the Stormtrooper helmet or something like that. But that's not very common. Yeah. And if you're going to have multiple printers, like why not have the ones for the farming and just some other.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I ended up liking about the Ender 3 is it's a little smaller footprint, so I can stack them closer and that together. And like you said, I didn't need as much space.
Yeah.
So a lot of things fit on it. So that ended up working really well. But that's why I landed on the CR10 Mini. I love the CR10, but the CR10 Mini fit on the bench easier and gave me plenty of space, and I didn't need the height. So it ended up, and it was like $100 less at the time. So, for $100 less, it was worth just getting a bunch of CR10 Minis. And then to me, the bed heats quicker because it's smaller, so I could print a little faster. And I found the quality was just as good as the CR10. And then the bed itself had a connector, so I didn't have to worry about wires breaking. So it ended up being more reliable.
Yep.
And that's how I ended up settling on CR10 Mini. To me, was the best investment, best bang for the buck.
Yeah. Now, like for me, the reason I have all the CR10s I do is because I came across a heck of a steal on printers. I found a Facebook listing for some Creality. They weren't even listed as Creality. The box doesn't say Creality on it, but they are Creality. You look at stepper motors, they say Creality on them. It's a Creality CR7. Did you ever hear of that, Chuck?
Yeah.
I got three of them for $60.
Oh wow! Like three
Now, here's the best part. So I go to pick these up, and I knew they had some Hicktop CR10s, which is a CR10 with a sticker slapped on the front of the box.
Right.
I knew they had completed ones, and I said to her, I was like, what all do you guys have? Because I realized what they were. They were Amazon buyback or Amazon returns. They bought a skid. And she takes me back. She shows me all these assembled ones, and she goes, over there, some in boxes, but they're broken or missing parts. Like, can I take a look at those? What do you want for them? It turned into 6 CR10 variants. The orange CR10S that's back here behind me. 4 CR10 printers and 1 CR10 mini. Every single one of them, except for one, came out of the box printing. Every single part was there for $120 for everything.
Wow.
That's a score.
CR10s, all of it.
Wow.
So it was like, there's my farm.
Yeah.
So
That's a hell of a deal.
yeah,
You know, you guys mentioned the ability to swap out a head really quickly, and there's been printers that have kind of toyed with that in the past, but you don't see it as like any kind of selling point. So it's like the MakerBots had a smart extruder at one point. It was a hold on with magnets and had some pogo pins, and just, you know, you could pop it off and swap on. You know, conceptually it seems awesome. Apparently I don't think it went anywhere. I don't know if it's patent issues. I don't know what it is, but as somebody that farms, it's really compelling to just have Molex connectors or something. And like they kind of do that with, you know, the hot end might have a Molex and a thermistor, but then your fans aren't. And like, why not have a consistent harness? How come we haven't seen that yet?
I think like you mentioned the pogo pin approach.
Mm-hmm.
And Chuck, you know way more about electronics than I do. Pogo pins are great for ease of use, but they're
probably not high current
though. And then the other side of it is the amperage too. The amount of current that you're passing through the pogo pins requires different sizes, and if you start to lose that contact, like my smartwatch, for example, has a pogo pin charger for it. From wearing that on my wrist, the dust, the dirt, the skin, all that stuff, I have to clean it from time to time, or else it charges extremely slow or not at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, well, the biggest failure in electronics is not electronics; it's mechanical failures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is no such thing really as electrical failure. E always equals I times R. So it's something mechanical. If a transistor fails, it probably overheated and cracked. You know, it's something mechanical. So the biggest issue on anything electrical is either the wiring and mostly the connectors. So I want less connectors on my setup to make it more reliable.
What do you do for when you have to swap a hot end out on one of your CR10s? Do you get the hot ends with the full harness that goes all the way back to the box, or do you put connectors on at the hot end?
I don't have to do it a lot, but when I've done it, I got the one that goes all the way back to the box.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it apart for parts, you know, and I'll use it if I have to fix something. But if it's on one of the print farm, I just unscrew it, take it off, put the new one on, re-level, and I'm done. I ain't got time. I ain't got time to fix it. So it's slap it on and go.
Right. On all mine, I ended up the hot end, the heater cartridge. I put XT60s on the first time I swap them out, and then that way when I order a replacement to have on hand, I just solder the XT60 on it a while. The fans for the CR10, you get the 2 fan wires and the thermistor wires. I just use DuPonts. But like Chuck said, mechanical, the movement of those connectors can be a problem at some point.
I mean, it's a fair point, and I think Chuck's strategy to go back to the box makes a lot of sense because 1, you're taking the mass away from the print head, and 2, you're taking where the motion is happening more, you know, out of the variable. So like that's where I would do it if I was going to do it. That said, I mean, you know, these connectors are pretty dang good. I for the amount of times that I'll have a meltdown or something where I just don't want to deal with it right away, I would trade that potential failure point for the convenience factor. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Eddie brings up a good point. The side, I don't know if you guys have seen the artillery sidewinder, but that's kind of the new hotness and the cheaper low end printer that is competing with the CR10, but with a little bit better hardware, touchscreen and direct drive and stuff like that. But they're doing the ribbon cable style thing, which has always had a lot of controversy around it. PrinterBot was doing it for a little while, where they're using more conductors basically to carry current and whatnot. And I keep hearing different things. Like if you get one conductor failing, then you're more potential for a meltdown or fire hazard.
The big thing there, Wanhao did it with the V2.1. Was it, Chuck, the one you had the short on the bed that they ended up shipping the washers to resolve it?
Yeah, that was
cable on it.
Yeah, but that was it was cutting into the circuit board and shorting out.
Yeah, you had the shorting out because of that. I was just referring to that's the printer I'm talking about. The one issue with ribbon cables that I can see is if they're using the right ribbon cables, it's okay. But a lot of ribbon cables aren't meant for movement. So if it's a moving cable, it's thin wire inside of the ribbon cables. You might be using multiple traces in that ribbon, but
they'll crack.
Thin wire, yeah, they'll crack on you. And now, okay, you cracked one. Well, now there's only 4 supplying the power that 5 is supposed to.
Right, they're overloaded. Yeah.
Now I didn't have a problem with my Wanhao. The issue I had with that I ended up not having it anymore was the motherboard crapped out while it was in warranty. So it went back and I got something.
The Up Mini I have, I love that little printer, and it's an ABS and nylon beast, and it uses a ribbon cable to pretty good effect. And I've got hundreds and hundreds, probably 1,000 hours on that thing at this point.
If you have a really good ribbon cable, quality ribbon cable, then it's going to be good because it's designed to flex.
Right.
But a lot of the ribbon cable that they're using is cheap ribbon cable, very, very small conductors, and you bend it back and forth about 20 times, and you're going to break some of the strands, and then it just starts from there.
But I mean,
it's the quality of it.
I mean, that's the case with anything, though, right? It's like you use a cheap anything, and it's gonna, I hear you though.
And that's why I replaced the whole thing. If I have something fail, like on the hot end or whatever, that means something else is probably going to fail at some point. So that's why I take the whole assembly all the way back to the connector at the box, replace the whole thing, because now I don't have to fix it again. Everything's new when I put it on.
That's true.
So I move on from there. So it's also the secondary fixes that I'm avoiding.
Yeah, and you're buying it with that harness on it, so it's not like in my case, I'm cutting half the harness off.
Exactly. I just unscrew what do you call it? Can't think of the name of the connector, but anyway, it's the metal connector. It screws on, and then it just feeds through, and then the screws, you just screw it onto the bracket, and then the fan cover. So it's like 4 screws, and then the connector itself. So it's pretty easy.
Yeah, getting at the Prusa is a royal pain, but they have the upgrade out. Probably won't receive mine for another 6 weeks or so, but it's supposed to be a redesign. And one of the key reasons for the redesign was to get rid of the access issues. So
that'll be good.
Lower profile too. So.
Chuck, Chris has a question in the chat. He said, "Isn't it past your bedtime?"
It was past my bedtime 2 hours ago.
Speaking of it, I think I'm going to be getting into girlfriend trouble territory myself, like Jimmy was there. So I'm going to hop off now.
Yeah, I think it's time for me to go anyway.
Yeah,
but
guys, it was awesome.
Chuck, thank you for helping getting Jimmy on and making getting the contact back with him and everything on it, and keeping on top of him. Apparently you text him and I text him earlier this week to remind him. So thank you for staying on top of Jimmy and helping get him on. That was one I've been working on since October. And I almost, you guys didn't hear this, I almost missed tonight. I was stuck at work. I'm on call tonight.
Oh, jeez.
I got home at 9 o'clock. And the stream starts at 10. It's like
I will say, Chuck, it was both of you guys, I think it was an awesome idea, because having crossover is a fantastic way, between kind of communities and stuff, is a great way to bring awareness and get new people in and stuff like that. So what you're doing, I think it was great. It was awesome getting to talk to Jimmy, and hopefully we can find some more, influencers in other space that we can kind of bring into the fold and learn some new stuff from too.
Yeah, you guys got to try to get Bob Claggett next. That would be good one.
Yeah, Bob's an awesome guy. It's just getting his time, just like Jimmy, I'm sure. So
yeah,
Jimmy's time. Well, you heard him. He just got back from California from filming, making it. He had crap. Now I can't think of it. The workshop that they just did this weekend.
the one
he's doing classes in his shop. So he just had Spring Make this past weekend. He's going to Maker Central in Europe next weekend. He's got a busy schedule. Bob is one that I'd like to get on because he's using 3D printing more for the final part of his projects, mixing it in with woodworking and metalworking as part of the final product. So I'd like to get Bob on as well.
Cool. All right, guys.
All right.
All right.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thank you, everybody who tuned in. Thank you again to Jimmy. Thank you to the entire panel. Thank you, everybody, for the questions and the constant chat going on. Have a good night. We'll see you again next week for the European Friday night hangout on May 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern for those of you in the States, 20 UTC for everybody everywhere else. And the next US stream is May 17th, 3D printing in the educational space. We'll see you guys then. Have a good night.